in both districts where the students come and there are games and prizes and activities for them to participate in and have a great time to celebrate their accomplishment and their reading.
Cynthia?
Yes, as Denise said, we are in our 8th year, the Governor's Summer Reading Challenge here in the Virgin Islands. But it should be noted that the Governor's Summer Reading Challenge is a reading challenge that happens across the United States. So governors of all states, they put on this reading challenge. But what's unique about what we do here in the Virgin Islands is that the books that the Department of Education, in conjunction with the governor's office, the books that we distribute to the students, they are all written by and illustrated by local authors, Virgin Islands authors, or Caribbean authors and illustrators. So that's a unique angle that we take here in the U.S. Virgin Islands, as opposed to just giving our students books from general authors. We make sure there's a sense of identity in the books that we provide to the students.
Is that applicable to both public and private school, or is this just a public school initiative?
This is applicable to all schools across the territory. So that's public, private, parochial, even students that are homeschooled.
That's correct.
Yes.
That's correct. So we distribute books to all kindergarten through 6th grade schools who participate in the challenge. That includes non-public schools.
Now, why did it stop at 6th grade? Why not? Are we saying that there's a challenge from K to 6, and we have a perfect situation, a perfect record of literacy, if you will, after grade 6?
Well, I don't think that that's the case, but the national program that Cynthia referred to, it is K through 6. Now, we would love to grow the program to include our 7th through 12th graders because, of course, their reading is equally important. Those students do get a reading list over the summer, and their parents acquire the books that they would read. Unfortunately, the budget right now permits us to provide books for K through 6.
K through 6, and as we look at the national, you said this is year 8, correct?
The 8th year, yes.
How would you measure the progress of the program, the impact? How is it? How do you know whether or not it's achieving the goals? How do you know?
Well, that's an interesting question. Like I said, we collect the tracking sheets so we can
Okay.
see how the students have participated in terms of how many books they've read. Some students read 5, and some students read, 55. So it depends. We do look at the test scores of our students to see how they're growing, from one year to the next. It's a little difficult to measure the impact of the summer reading challenge specifically, but we do know that when our students have more opportunities for reading, they do have better success in school.
Yeah, the old saying, reading is fundamental.
Absolutely.
And so that's the cue for me to take a break. We're going to take a quick break. After these messages, we'll come right back. This is the Economic Roundtable here on WSDX and the Kalaloo Network. I'm Anthony Weeks. We'll talk to you right after these messages.
Connect measures up to big expectations. Available in van and wagon configuration, you got the perfect partner for work or play in the new 2015 Ford Transit Connect. The ideal tool to bring your business to life.
Only thing is the cover letter I had to email it to you because I had this one address to send it.
Almost 6 cubic feet
Oh, okay.
more
Yeah,
than
the
its
cover letter.
competitor.
Everything else
With
is
seating up to 7 and
Okay.
multiple storage bins,
Okay.
the Transit Connect wagon is ideal for busy families on the go. Stop in today at Metro Motors St. Croix and St. Thomas and see which Ford Transit Connect is right for you.
Did you believe that 4 years ago we graduated from high school and now we are college graduates? I know, right? I know, it's okay. I think I'll make it taste it. Let's celebrate. Wait, why is that guy driving so crazy? Oh my gosh, look out! Driving under the influence can cause the life of an innocent human being. Car crashes are the leading cause of death, and about a quarter of those crashes involve an unable to drive driver. Think before you drink and drive, and prevent the loss of an innocent life. Matterhorn into equals a fatal
You guys
mistake.
should have got Earl to take this.
PSA was created after
You guys should have got Earl from the government channel. I just want to take this.
He's supposed to be running the PSA on the government channel. We have a video PSA, so I'm supposed to be uploading that today.
Well, you could have came in here and filmed the interview.
Yeah, yeah.
No, he doesn't. He only comes in for like.
Government. And
All
by
government.
yeah.
Okay.
Not
I
just-
thought
not just the
those commissioners and
No.
high level.
Sometimes they come in for special different programs like this. I would imagine that they would have
Yeah, you need to
problem
get the word. You need to get the word out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, certain government agencies are like, no, we're not filming it. But this is, I mean, that's good
Yeah.
for the kids. So obviously, they want coverage. Yeah, I just saw that because I just saw Earl drive by the down there.
Oh, he was here.
He just drove by. I don't know if it was him or the other guy, but
Okay.
I just saw that.
The 31,
SUV.
Geo 31,
Yeah.
Go 31.
WSTX.
All right, folks, we are back, and thank you so much for tuning into the program this afternoon. And I'm here in the studio. I've been joined by representatives of the Department of Education and their reading program. It's the 8th annual Virgin Islands Governor's Summer Reading Challenge, K to 6, grade 6. Read 5 or more books and win fun prizes, extra credit points, and more. June 8th to September 23rd, 2016. Plus, attend the Governor's Big End of Challenge celebration. Let's talk a little bit about that. Is that like an award ceremony? It says the Governor's Big End of Challenge. What is that Big End of Challenge?
Well, it is, as we say, it is a big celebration.
Okay.
And it happens across the 2 districts, one on St. Croix, one on St. Thomas, and also in years past, one on St. John, actually on all 3 islands. And it's just a big fun day at a local park or a high school gymnasium, wherever, we can get to house all of these students coming in to celebrate the fact that they've read all summer long, that they've tracked their books, and that they've remained engaged in literacy. So it's literally a fun day. I mean, bouncies and food and drink and music and just games. And then the governor and education officials are usually there to congratulate the students. And also we have sponsors that play a role in providing gifts and prizes for the young people. So it's just a fun day for our young people that have read in the challenge.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop right there and ask if my colleagues have a question for you guys. If they don't, I will then ask my question. Colleagues in the virtual, do you have a question for the Department of Education guests in the studio? Sure.
Well, again, like we said, it is a very difficult thing to measure the effectiveness, direct impact of the challenge and activities such as these. There are some teachers who do use the books in their lessons when they return in the new school year to just to make sure that their comprehension is there. Um, it's a difficult thing to measure, and I do understand what you're saying about making sure that the money that is spent on initiatives such as this is having a measurable impact, and those are things that we can look at some more. But the challenge is to get our students to be reading, to increase their opportunities for reading, to increase literacy around them, to give them access to books, and then we can see that that their academic performance takes a significant increase.
in the school year, during the academic year. And so they had a clear way of measuring the outcome of their summer reading initiative. And it seems to me like government agencies are the only agencies that put forth initiatives and spend money on a continuous basis on things where they have no way of actually measuring the outcome. And until we get on board and get to the point where we can actually measure whether or not what we're doing is successful, we have no way of actually taking corrective actions to make these type of programs more efficient.
Okay. Well, there is an activity sheet that goes along with the books. Each child will receive an activity sheet, and on that sheet they have to track and in some cases write summaries about the books and turn them into their teachers. So there is a level of assessment that is attached to the initiative. However, the impact that it has on the child, direct impact on the child's grades or test scores, is unclear.
On a national level,
But
hold on.
initiatives, are those a requirement of people participating in the program?
Yes, in terms of filling out the tracking sheets, yes, each grade level have specific questions about the books that they read, and then they fill those out. And when they turn those in the fall, at the end of the challenge, they do receive extra credit points. And again, the tracking sheets are reviewed by the teachers, to make sure that the students really did indeed read the books and understand the content of the books. So, all of these things are being looked at. We're not just sort of sending the children out to read and then not really paying attention to whether or not they did indeed read. So all grade levels do have the tracking sheets, and then um, on those tracking sheets, there's specific questions about the books, and the higher grade levels even get to write a little narrative about the books that they've read. So that's how we move forward with this.
I just want to piggyback off of a comment my colleague made in terms of the money. How is this program funded?
This program is funded, Denise, am I correct, by private donations?
Yes, it's funded through donations from community businesses and investors who support the challenge.
So families that are challenged financially don't have to purchase the books themselves for the 5 books that each kid needs to read, or is it the books are donated? I mean,
The monies are donated, and then we purchase the books with those monies. So the students are received in a nice bag,
mhm.
2 books. The public school students 2 books each, and they with their tracking sheets, of course. And again, they can get more books from the library's website, um, uh, Virgin Islands Public Libraries.org, where they can click and read the ebooks at no charge. Of course, they can also go down to the local libraries in the towns and get books as well. So they can satisfy their 5 book requirement and many, many more without any funds expended by the parents.
Fantastic. David, do you have any question?
Oh, it's a fascinating discussion.
Okay. Now, what I want to understand, wrap my mind around, when we think of reading is fundamental, and obviously it's the foundation that is laid. Where are we in the broader scope, bigger picture, in terms of literacy in the territory? Do you have any statistics on that that tells us, where we rank?
I don't have any statistics right off the top of my head. I know that literacy is definitely a need, an area of improvement for us. We are working diligently in the schools with intervention programs to help our students achieve their goals. One of our governor's initiatives or goals that he has stated is that he would like to have all children reading on grade level by the 3rd grade. And so we're working very hard through professional development for our teachers and resources for our teachers and students to make sure that our students can achieve that goal of reading on grade level. Of course, we know that our students learn to read up until grade 3, and then from grade 4 on, they read to learn. So it's critical that by the 4th grade, our students are strong readers so that they can acquire the information that they will need as they go through their academic journey.
The reason I ask that because I've heard often there's a lot of remedial type, lack of a better description, courses that are offered and taken by folks in the public school system, and so I'm just trying to wrap my mind around where, looking at that pocket, where is the problem area, and obviously if reading is the fundamental issue, how do we, like Edison said, how do you track it? How you track it? If we're part of a national system, I'm assuming that there's a process where you're managing this thing at a level where you have all the checks and balances that says, okay, here's what you do, here's the investment, that the program is doing well, and you're going to continue it, in the indefinite future. And so I guess that's my thinking in terms of understanding, obviously, where we're looking at the future, and the future is about technology. And what comes to mind is I'm thinking that all of us are more inclined to engage technology at this point, and a lot of people are not reading. You know what? Let me be transparent. I read a lot of business journal, magazine, newspapers, but I'm not reading a novel or a book.
Okay.
That's just not me. And so, but anything to do with, I'm well researched, I'm data driven, but I'm not picking up a novel to read a book.
Right.
Okay, and so, how is this program positioned where you have the challenge of making sure that you impart and you lay that foundation to create strong readership within the public school system and other school system, but at the same time where technology is also sort of either on par or exceeding people's desire to engage. Young people, the kids are probably more inclined to want to read if you make it more interesting, and technology kind of like creates that challenge, as opposed to just sitting there picking up a book and say, read this book.
Right.
And then also I want you also to tell me a little bit about the role of the parents in this process.
Okay. Well, I'll speak a little bit about the intervention programs in the schools, because most of the intervention programs are online, technology-based programs. And so students are able to basically do a test to see where they are, and this is both math and reading. And they give them kind of prescriptive intervention to help each student to get where they need to go. And I think that's important because in order for us to see that what we're doing, we do a lot of hard work, but what's the impact of that work? So we use these technology, these programs in our schools to get the data that we need to see that what we're doing is working. To see that child A went from you know, he's in fifth grade, reading on the second grade level maybe, and now at the end of fifth grade, he's on, you know, maybe fourth grade level. So we see that that child is progressing along the way. As for the parents, of course, the parents, none of this can be done without the intervention and assistance of our parents. The parents are a critical part of this whole puzzle, and we're hoping that the parents will encourage and support their students through this process, not just you know, during the academic year, but also over the summer, to encourage them to stay, to keep their brains active, to stay engaged, to participate in the challenge, to continue practicing their math skills, because as we know, when we don't use our skills, we tend to lose them, and then when they come back in August, it's like starting all over again. So the parents are 100% our partners, and we need them to know that we need you, and we need you to participate in this process 100% with us.
And with the parents, a lot of times, you know, the student comes home from school with homework assignment, and a lot of times the parents are challenged with being able to assist the child. How do you know whether or not the parent is able to, I'm not trying to be funny, but how do you know that the parent, you know, from a literary standpoint, whether or not they're able to, you know, really instill or to really work with the children to really read the way they're supposed to?
But that's a reality. In our schools, we have parents who are not able to help their students. And sometimes the things that we do in school now are different to how we learned it. And so we have support systems within the school to help those students who need additional assistance. We have hopefully neighbors and uncles and cousins and aunts who may be able to step in and assist in the process as well. The parents need to know that they're not alone, and if they can speak with the schools and speak with the teachers, I'm sure that there are support systems in place that can help that child acquire the information they need.
Okay, hold that thought. Alfie, we'll take a break and then there's a caller?
Yes, sir.
Okay, caller, please be patient with us. We need to take a quick break, and we'll certainly circle back and catch you on the other side. Folks, you're listening to the Economic Roundtable here on WSDX 970 AM and the Callaloo Network. We'll be right back.
Congestion, sinus pain, or pressure, Dr. Shapiro, Smolars, and Gasson at Virgin Islands Sinus and Nasal Institute can help you feel better by temporarily placing tiny sinus balloons in your drainage pathways to widen them. The results are often instant and long-lasting. The balloon procedure is easy to schedule. It can be done right in their offices on St. Thomas and St. Croix, and is covered by most insurance. Call Virgin Islands Sinus and Nasal Institute at 340-77-SINUS. That's 340-777-4687 today for an appointment to see if balloons are right for you. 340-77-SINUS. That's 340-777-4687. Breathe better, feel better.
This is Steve Billabong from Food Town Supermarket, located at 4037 La Grand Princess. When I need the best produce and ingredients for my chili, I head right over to Food Town.
But wait, Food Town prices can't fit all the pocket.
On demand. Food Town Supermarket is for everybody. For the best prices, call 718-9990. Remember, Food Town, we have the best of the best in grocery. Call today, 718-9990. And don't you forget, Food Town Supermarket at 4037 La Grand Princess. Food Town Supermarket, serving the best of the best for the cruising community.
Yo, how come your battery like drinking? What battery like? And your EMT? I mean, what's the innovative box that your phone and internet router is plugged into? Obviously, throw it the whole battery. No, don't throw it away. Just take it back to innovative and they're gonna replace it for free. If you see your battery like this, it's an orange light. If it's flashing bright, then you see what you should be thinking. The battery died when you power down and you need the line 122. Just like 912, we will come and change it for you.
Extra batteries available to purchase.
Innovative your islands, your home.
News talk for the Virgin Islands, AM 970 WSTX.
All right, folks, welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning to another live edition of the Economic Roundtable here on WSCX 970 AM and the Callaloo Network. I'm Anthony Weeks. Let's go straight to the phone line. We do have a caller. Good afternoon, caller. Welcome to the program. Good afternoon. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Illustrations. Yeah, illustrations of of the story. Yes. No, absolutely. It's I'm going to let the experts respond to that.
Good afternoon, caller. Thank you for calling. Absolutely, we agree 100% that we know many of our children, students, especially the younger ones, Denise, they're engaged by the pictures and the illustrations that they see. So if you visit the read5.org website, in fact, it's in the process of being updated. We will be sending that site live a little later on today. Read5.org. You'll get a chance to see the books that the students are receiving this year for the Summer Reading Challenge. And in the primary grades, we have one, it's called Pirates. There's a book about pirates. There's a
We
book,
are pirates.
We Are the Pirates. And the pictures and the illustrations, they're bright and colorful and whimsical, and it holds the children's attention. Uh-huh. Sure. Right.
They
Well, you said not as
Right.
yet. Not as yet,
Not
she
as
says.
yet.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you, caller.
I just wanted to add, if I may, that as we said earlier, the authors are all local authors. And so we see things in the book, concepts in the book that are very familiar to the students, pelicans and you see
Mongoose
the
and
sea and the
Mhm.
ocean and the birds and the sand and the crabs. So I think it really does a lot to add the relativity.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. 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 It's good. Very, very good point. Very, very good point. Very valid point. That's okay. Thank you. Thank you for your
Thank you.
contribution.
Thank you.
Which reminded, and let me just ask my colleague, like to hear from them as well. I think what the caller is saying is it's a lot about the optics. It reminds me of people of color. Young girls grew up with a white Barbie doll, and there wasn't a black Barbie doll or a Latina doll, and so is it very effective to engage these children if there's something content or pictures that are relevant to their environment?
No,
They learn
absolutely.
better,
Absolutely.
and it's more engaging and keeps them
Right.
interested.
Yes, and all the pictures look like our children. It's a mix, but there's a lot of black children in the books and images, so it really helps them to identify with what they're reading a little bit better, and it's more about them.
Fantastic. Colleagues, before we let these folks from the Department of Education go, any follow-up questions, any final thoughts on our discussion? Hmm. Wow.
Yeah, we actually do. The vision company visits our students at the school, so they don't even have to go to the eye doctor. The eye doctor comes to them and
Wow.
examines their eyes and recommends those students for
I didn't have
for,
that as a
for
kid. I'm
eyeglasses.
just joking.
Neither did I, but it is a service that is provided to our students today.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. Um, Cynthia, any closing thoughts?
Sure. Again, just wanted to remind the public that the 8th Annual Governor's Summer Reading Challenge will kick off this Wednesday. That's June 8th, and it'll end on September 23rd. And again, it's geared towards students in grades K through 6th. The governor is challenging them to read 5 or more books this summer. And so please visit www.read5.org for full details about the challenge. Students can also download tracking sheets to track their books. And of course, all of the schools in the territory have already received books or are in the process of receiving books between now and Wednesday. So we encourage our young people to read 5 this summer.
And there's a website you want to kind of reinforce?
Again, that's read5.org. Again, it will be live a little later on today. If you go on the site right now, there's a little statement saying that we're updating the site, but it'll be live in a couple of hours. So read5.org, and it shows you all of the wonderful books the students will be reading and gives you full details of the book. Also, in our movie theaters, there's a wonderful commercial that's playing with the governor and some local students that are talking about the reading challenge this summer. So do take your young people to the movies. You get a chance to see that. So read5.org.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, ladies, so much for coming by and sharing with us this information, this rather exciting reading program. I think, again, reading is fundamental. Absolutely. And the more we can reinforce reading, I think our children are going to be better off in the future. And looking forward to a follow-up at the end of the summer, at the end of the program, to hear back from you guys to see how things went.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Denise Gomez and Cynthia Graham, thank you so much from the Department of Education.
Thank you.
Thank you. So much.
Okay.
Folks, we're going to take a break. Coming up next, again, this is Small Business Week, and we have the advocate for the SBA Region 2 in the studio with her guests as well, Cassandra Dunn in the studio as well. This is the Economic Roundtable on WSCX 970 AM and the Callaloo Network. We will be right back. All right, ladies.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anthony Weeks.
All right. What do you think? It was painless, right? It was painless, right? I was trying to not get too in depth with the kind of questions.
You guys did, but it was okay. The discussion was rich. I appreciate you guys having us on such short notice. Yes, so we'll have a lot more happening in the community throughout the summer.
Fantastic.
Yes,
Fantastic.
thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yes. Hello. No, this is not okay. I just called to tell her how you just love how she sounded.
Oh boy.
Yes.
What am I doing? Terry. Nice to meet you. And it's Gomes. Just so you know. Her name is Gomes. Yeah. Don't worry.
I know sometimes in interviews they usually ask to pronounce things, but
Right. Don't worry. I'll be in touch, of course, and I'll send over the audio.
I gotta get some restaurants. I'll be
Just let me know. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. How are you? Good. Cynthia. What's your name? Terry Coxton. Okay. I'm the regional advocate for the Small Business Administration. Yeah. So I work with business on regulatory. Oh, wow. Do you have a car? I do. Okay, well, hold on. I'm going to give her back. Good talk. After she hijacks the phone. Okay. I am right here. Okay. Oh, nice. Education. Okay, good. Are you ready to yeah. If she's talking about okay. Where are you at? Education right here, this old building. Oh, okay. I'm Bishop. Or where are they? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Okay. All right. Anthony. Of course. That's all
I was saying. This is the same Terry from the from the morning show.
That's right.
Yes.
Absolutely. Now you get to put a name on the face. Good to be seen.
Right. That was all great.
Yeah, good to be seen.
Have a seat. Have a seat.
I am not going to be on the video. That was not my plan.
You're not going to come to my studio and not say anything. So you need to just quit that and
just take a seat.
Get comfortable and sit back.
Wow, that's so ugly.
No.
Do you mind taking a picture for us? I want to see if I can add this to our.
It is. Did you give her the information in terms of the links that it's live? Watch it live.
Oh no.
Oh, no, wait, whoa, you know, I probably didn't send it to
Anything
you.
you want to send
I
back
posted
to
that.
your
Oh, I
folks?
can. Yeah.
I posted it on
Here it is right here.
Facebook. Let me,
Right here.
Oh.
Yeah. It's.
See?
You know how women are. We gotta make sure we're straight now. It's like, I didn't wear the outfit. I didn't wear the outfit for this.
All right, folks, welcome back, and thank you so much for tuning into another live broadcast of the Economic Roundtable. I'm Anthony Weeks, your host, and in the virtual studio are my colleagues, David Zumwalt, Edison Walters, and former Congresswoman Donna Christensen. And Donna is eavesdropping. She is, I believe, at the UN for a very important conference on, I believe, AIDS, a continued discussion on, or at least trying to find ways to, if you find the cure, I don't think they've found a cure yet, but I think they're working quite diligently to at least mitigate it and reduce the statistics as far as that's concerned. But in the studio, we have some special guests. And as I mentioned earlier, it's Small Business Month. And before I was saying Small Business Week. I don't know why I was saying week. Correction, it is Small Business Month of June, and we do have the representative from the SBA in the studio with us. But before I say that, let me just kind of ask my colleague. I know that I want to make sure everybody's still in the studio. David, Edison, and Donna, are you still with us? Alfie is the, I'm not hearing my colleagues. Hi, Donna, David, Edison, are you there? I don't know, I'm sure something must be turned down. Let me see here. Okay. Well, guys, just sit tight. I'm waiting for Alfie to come into the studio to see whether or not he has the volume down as to why I can't hear you, and we'll fix that in a minute. Now, like I said, this person, it's someone. She might be new to you, but certainly I've had the privilege of engaging her and having discussions with her on her area of responsibility with the SBA. She's appeared before on the Kalaloo Network, but this was the morning show.
Yes.
And that was a different vibe.
Yes.
You know, it's one of those shows that we had morning shows. Mm-hmm. Anything goes. and
we
so
had a lot of flavor.
Exactly. And a good friend and a colleague, Celeste Morris, was responsible for bringing you on the guest. She was, of course, one of the co-producers and co-hosts of the morning show that was called Good Morning Caribbean and the Morning Tempo.
Yes.
and so it was a very successful program, and I really enjoyed it a lot. But this time you're here because her sister did the honors of extending that invitation. Did you know that we met before, Cassandra?
Actually, my sister told me that she had been on on your show earlier,
right,
or years back.
Yes.
And so it was, a natural hookup.
Yes.
And certainly we've been enjoying our time together.
Yeah. Terry, now I've got to make sure I don't jack your last name. Coaxum.
That's right.
See, look at that, huh?
Perfect. Like you coaxing them.
Exactly. Terry Coaxum, she is the regional advocate for Region 2, covering the states of New Jersey, New York, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. Coaxum is the chief counsel for advocacy, direct link to small business owners, state and local government agencies, state legislators, trade associations, and small business organizations throughout the region. Coaxum was appointed to her post since January of 2011. I want to thank you so much for being part of the program.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. You're welcome. My colleague, just sit tight. I'm waiting for Alfie to come into the studio. I believe that the volume is down, so I can't hear you. So just you can hear me, but I can't hear you. Just sit tight. I want to share some background, if you will, to understand the extent of the role of small business in our economy. It is truly the engine
Absolutely.
and the centerpiece of the great economy that we have when you compare our economy to other economies around the world.
That's right.
And so, according to the Kaufman organization, we see between 1980 to 2005, firms less than 5 years old accounted for all net job growth in the United States. Now, this is excluding startups. Young firms, defined as 1 to 5 years of age, accounted for nearly 2/3 of jobs created in 2007. While only half a new firm survived to age 5, 80% of the jobs created by the firm survive 5 years. New firms in the United States have generated about 3 million jobs every year, but recent cohorts have performed much worse, creating only 2.3 million jobs in 2009. More than half of the companies on the 2009 Fortune 500 list were launched during a recession or bear market, along with nearly half of the firms on the 2008 Inc. magazine list of America's fastest growing companies. And so when you think of, and I want to stop there because there's a lot of details, I'm going to get into that a little later, but on an average, Americans are creating on a monthly basis about 500,000 new startups, new businesses. That's a fascinating number.
It is.
But even though that's a huge number, guess what? That number is down since the let me see. I want to make sure I have this right. According to GPS, the Global Public Square host Fareed Zakaria, he has an op-ed in the Washington Post, and the question is asked: why is the number of U.S. startups falling? And so I want to be able to kind of share that with you as well. But obviously, you're here to talk about all of the wonderful things you're here to present and talk about things that you're offering and resources and whatnot.
Absolutely.
But I believe I can speak to my colleagues now. Colleagues, I apologize about that. I was a little bit challenged with the board and didn't know which knob to turn up. I believe I can hear you now. David, Edison, and Donna, are you there? Fantastic. All right, we're looking forward to this conversation. Why? Because SETI is a macroeconomic and public policy think tank.
Excellent.
We are in the business of basically looking at what we conceive or perceive to be as a problem or a challenge or opportunities for areas of development, economic development, expansion, and growth. And we just don't talk about them. What we also do is we provide the solution. We draft proposals and legislation, and we work closely with our public sector counterparts to try to find ways to help create policies, create laws that will translate into policy to foster the kind of environment to create more business creation and job creation here in the territories.
Absolutely.
And so we're really looking forward to this because the folks on this this think tank, we are entrepreneurs, and so we're glad to be able to have you in the program.
Excellent.
So thank you for coming. Why don't you share with the audience who you are and tell us a little bit about yourself, and we can take it from there.
Absolutely. So first of all, thanks again, and thanks to your colleagues for being on as well. I'm the regional advocate for Small Business Administration, the Office of Advocacy, as Anthony said. And so basically, I am the advocate in the federal government for small business. So most of us, when we think about SBA, we think about the 3 C's. We think about capital access. We think about contracting opportunities. And I'll pause there because the the federal government purchases over $500 billion of goods and services every year. So it's a great opportunity for small businesses that want to expand to play in that contracting space. And then the third C, meaning the counseling and training, we have a fabulous team here on the ground. With Wayne Huddleston is the director, the branch director for the U.S. Virgin Islands, and we have Karen Jones. Everyone knows Karen. She's doing a wonderful job. And we had a tragic loss when Carl Christensen retired after 27 years. But those are the services that the SBA is able to provide. My regional administrator likes to say I bring up the grade point average in the agency because I'm the A. I'm the advocate. So even though that the Office of Advocacy is housed under the SBA umbrella, we're actually independent of SBA. Independent meaning that my boss, Darryl DePriest, doesn't report to Administrator Sweet. He reports directly to President Barack Obama. And in addition to that, we have our own independent budget. So what that means for the small businesses here on the island is that you have an advocate that can advocate for you within the federal government without limitation. So we are the voice. We're known as the regulatory watchdogs. And it's great to hear you say, that you are working on policy changes, or you're working on regulatory changes and working on laws to increase and to get more successful business, because we're in the same space. We're playing in the same space. So what does that mean? As the regional advocate, I am on the ground talking to small business, meeting with the chambers. I just met with the chamber leadership, meeting with the chambers, meeting with the Rotaries, on the ground talking to small business, doing small business tours, going over to the incubator program, talking to the business that are on the ground, bootstraps on the ground, that have barriers, talking to them about best practices and sharing big ideas. So when you started off with the statistics about small business are the engine. They're the absolute engine of our economy. And our office, the Office of Advocacy, we do the metrics. So when you start talking about those numbers, I started smiling because we actually are the sole government agency charged with actually highlighting the importance of small business. So 99.7% of all business is small business, which is what you alluded to. So that means that we have to support the small businesses in order for our economy to continue to grow. And so you started talking about businesses failing. One of the challenges that I hear on the ground with small businesses that are not as successful is, they're not receiving the counseling and training early on. So I encourage small businesses with their financials, with their marketing plans, if they're not clear what their vision is, to utilize the small business development centers, to utilize the women-owned business centers, so we can get it early. Sometimes small businesses will come into the different counseling and training sessions with a box of papers. And so they have a challenge going through those years of papers to try to make sure that we can assist them with next steps. I encourage you, come early, come often, take advantages of the services of the SBA. Now, if you find that there is a challenge outside of that, I'm your advocate within the federal government. So what does that mean? The Office of Advocacy is actually at the table with the federal regulators when they're proposing regulations. So when the SEC was proposing the regulations on the crowdfunding bill, there was 500 pages of rules. Cassandra and you and I, we smile because most of my small business are not going to read 500 pages of rules because they're trying to make payroll. However, our office, the Office of Advocacy, we have the economists, we have the lawyers on staff. We're reading those rules. We're reading the EPA rules. We're reading the OSHA rules. We're reading the rules. And if there's a barrier for our small business, we're at the table with the federal regulators, making sure we're sounding the drum really loud, saying this is a barrier and here's why. So with the SEC rules, we were actually able to meet with the VCs, to meet with the angels, to meet with the platforms, and to meet with small businesses and find out what some of those barriers were and share that with the SEC, which was then placed into the final rules. So my job as an advocate, is to work with small business. Another challenge is most small businesses, they don't care if it's a federal issue, a state, municipal. All they care is that they have an issue and they'd like assistance. And so my job, in addition to working with them on federal issues, is making sure I'm moving the needle on the other issues. So by talking to you, Anthony, by talking to Cassandra, by talking to the chambers, I can say, here is what we're doing in this space and connect them to the right people. So for instance, when I was in New York, one of the challenges was contracting opportunities. And it was contracting opportunities as it related to the regulatory red tape. The small businesses said to me, why does it take so long to get certified in New York State? And so having a conversation with Governor Cuomo's people, with Alfonso David at the time, myself and the administrator for GSA, Denise Peace, we were able to have a federal contracting forum around this with the federal families that had opportunities for contracting. The small businesses were involved, and we were actually able to connect the businesses with the federal contracting agencies to look at opportunities. But more importantly, the governor of New York said, you know, the regulatory red tape, which was the barrier in the beginning, which was a huge barrier that they were complaining about. So now if you're an 8A firm, you can now become a state certified firm with 2 pages as opposed to all of the regulatory, all of the information you had to fill out before. And then you can fill out 1 additional page and be city certified. So it wasn't necessarily a federal issue, but it was something that we can work together, because the businesses said, and you may hear this a lot, why doesn't the government play in the same sandbox? Why do you guys, you operate in silos? Being an advocate gives me an opportunity to bring the government together, to work together, as opposed to operating in little silos. And as a result of that, our small businesses are getting the attention they need when they have a barrier. We're sharing some of the best practices that we're doing in different parts of the region. And more importantly, we're coming up with big ideas, because small businesses are innovative. They will come up with big ideas that I may not think about because my boots are not on the ground. So as an advocate, I'm an additional resource. And I'm on this show today because I'm empowered by the small business. If they don't reach out to me when they have an issue or a concern, a barrier, regulatory barrier, I'm not able to assist. And so I'm here to let them know they have an additional resource in the federal government, and encourage them to reach out to me so we can help them build wealth together.
Well, but you also, which is most important, where there's consensus between Congress, a bipartisan agenda, and the White House, is the Jobs Act, Jumpstart My Business Startup.
Absolutely.
And the role of the SBA is quite important in that process.
Absolutely.
We're talking about leveraging and marshaling all the federal resources to help stimulate the private sector to create and encourage more startups.
Absolutely.
And so.
And then working with those startups to make sure that they continue to be successful. And I think that's key. Starting a business is one aspect of it, but continuing to follow up with those small businesses as they go along through the small business development centers. That's also very, very key. I've had businesses say to me that had it not been for that continuous follow-up, those relationships with the SBDCs and the Women-Owned Business Centers and all the different programs, they wouldn't have been as successful. So making sure that we follow up, not just start, but continue to help them.
Here's a couple of talking points before I engage my colleagues in the virtual studio. And just as a point of reference, David Zumwalt is the former CEO of the University of Virgin Islands Research and Technology Park.
David, okay.
Yes, and then Edison Walters is, I'm not sure where he's at, but he is close to having his PhD in global business. In terms of understanding the dynamics of these things work.
Okay.
We had on the program back in several months ago, Deputy Board President Diana Reyna.
Oh, Diana Reyna, she's a good friend of mine.
Yes, and we had a wonderful conversation. Now, when I was in New York and I attended for the first time ever, where they literally had all of the different local municipal government agencies and maybe some other state agencies in the same room in Brooklyn, I was there, I brought it live, and one of the things she said to me, because I had a separate meeting with her, she said the problem with small businesses or women-owned businesses or minority-owned businesses or disadvantaged businesses and all the other types of ethnic type businesses, you talked about the certification process.
Yes.
The government is doing business with a lot of these businesses, but they're unable to properly track the data because a lot of these companies are not certified. And so when they propose to increase funding, the city of New York want to increase their funding for minority and disadvantaged business to $16 billion, and I believe the state has something comparable to that.
Yeah.
But the opponents to the program said, "How do you justify increasing the numbers when you don't have the data to support that?" And so what the question I'm asking you, why do you believe, whether it's the mom and pop, small business, women-owned, minority-owned, Latino, Asian, whatever, all these different businesses, they want the opportunity, but the process for them to then follow through with the documentation for them to become certified is where there's a disconnect, and so therefore there's a missed opportunity across the board. I mean, you can offer what you offer, but if you can't get the cooperation from these businesses, then you're not going to make the mark.
And I think education is key there. And I'm going to use the Virgin Islands as an example. First of all, by way of reference, Diana Dana was also the chair of our Small Business Committee in New York City when she was a New York City council member. And I actually appeared before her in a couple of hearings, because the other thing that my office does is that we, with the metrics, is we do the reports. So the lending studies, the women-owned business report, the reports on veterans, we do those reports highlighting the importance of small businesses. So I did have had several opportunities to work with her. So here's the thing. I think education is the key, and I'm going to use the Virgin Islands. When I first came on as a small business advocate, I believe we had one 8A firm. Now, the opportunities became available because I had small businesses saying, where are our contracting opportunities? Why can't we do business with the government? You're talking about this $500 billion. How do we get a part of that? So one of the things that, in having a conversation with Denise Pease, our administrator for GSA, and as we know, GSA purchases everything from paper clips to buildings to whatever. And so opportunities did become available. So the GSA is looking to put Sally ports. So they're literally, with the courthouses here in the islands, they want to put a Sally port behind the courthouses so that when defendants come in, they don't have to mix with population. They're coming in a separate entrance, they're exiting a separate entrance. And the last time I spoke, it was like $80 million, right? But you have to be certified. So that's why I'm going to bring it back, right? So basically, GSA and the SBA and a couple of other federal families came together. We had a small business roundtable and information forum where we informed the business here in the Virgin Islands that there were these opportunities coming down the pipe, and you need to get ready for them. And get ready meaning you had to be 8A certified, or if you were HubZone certified, if you were self-certifying as a women-owned business, minority-owned business, you had to get ready so that you would be able to be counted in the numbers that you're referring to. And now to date, I believe there are now 6 8A firms in the Virgin Islands, whereas at that point there was only 1. So when you ask the question of how do you get how do you fill that disconnect? Because there is clearly a disconnect, because the 8A opportunity is a tedious task. We just had this conversation in a chamber meeting. There is a lot of paperwork to be filled out, but once you fill it out, it's a 9-year process where you are now looking at these opportunities that the federal government has. Education is key, making sure that we let them see the value of putting in the time and effort to becoming an 8A firm or a HubZone firm, making sure that they cut down on the paperwork for 8A firms. And so that was one of the things that small business, they were like, it's too much work, it's too much paperwork, how do we change this? The SBA heard there is a smaller amount of paperwork that's to be done, but in order for you to get counted in those numbers, you have to be certified.
Yeah,
and in
sure.
order to be certified, you have to work with, if you want to do it through a process that is pretty much seamless, because they're doing it all the time. You work with the small business development centers or the women-owned business centers because they're doing that all the time. In New York, we have PTAC. You work with the procurement technical assistants, and they'll help you to move the envelope forward. So I encourage businesses, if you're looking at some of those contracting opportunities, I encourage you to reach out to your local SBA and see whether, because they have the training. You can go online, and I tell people this all the time, SBA.gov, wealth of information. You can go online for webinars, you can go online for training, you can go online to find out how to write a better business plan or how to write a business plan. All that information is available. But then if you find and you have a regulatory concern that's your barrier that's holding you back, then SBA.gov/advocacy. So we will work together, Anthony, and of course Cassandra, to make sure that we're educating the community. These opportunities, contracting opportunities are available. And then, make sure the SBA, when they have these training sessions, they're giving you that information so that you can share it with your listeners, so that we're connecting the dots in that way.
Because our role as a organization is to aggregate
Absolutely.
The individual businesses that would. It's like, I'm a former banker, and so is Edison.
I used to work in manufacturing Hanover
Okay.
Trust. I'm sure you know nothing about
exactly.
that.
and so we understand, in order to, if you're going to attract a particular sector or an industry,
Mhm.
when you do that successfully, they're going to be camp followers.
That's right.
And so what we try to do is try to, if you will, re-engineer how the local market looks at business or how it will grow its economy.
Right.
And so I want to bring in my colleague, David Zumwalt and Edison, because there's a lot to cover. By the way, my show, this is the Economic Roundtable.
Yes.
I segue right away at 2:30 into NBC Live in the Marketplace.
Oh wow.
So if you
Okay.
need not worry about time, we'll cover if you can afford the time. But I want to take a quick break. When we come back, would like to hear from my colleagues in the virtual studio, David Zumwalt, Edison Walters, and former Congresswoman Donna Christensen. This is the Economic Roundtable on WSTX 970 and the Kalaloo Network. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Wow.
Mhm.
This is really good stuff.
Yeah.
This is really good stuff. I'm really excited because the questions you're asking are the questions I get. As far as the small businesses. Well, I do want to do contracting, but I don't want to do paperwork for contracting. I want those opportunities, but then when you start talking $80 million on outlay, like, wait a minute, how do I get certified? And how do you go from a number of one? When I came on, there's only one. Now I think there's 6 to 8. The last time I heard, there were 2 more that were about to become 8A certified, so I have to confirm the numbers. But it's a great opportunity to do business with the government.
Well, the
Great
challenge,
opportunity.
Diana, sorry.
No, go ahead.
The challenge the borough president gave me, Brooklyn Borough president gave me, she said, Anthony, the problem with a lot of these associations and organizations in the market that are there to help, we're not talking about the federal government, we're just talking about community organizations and whatnot.
Like the chamber.
Is well, I just
No pun intended.
well, I'm not just talking about here. I'm just talking about New York as well.
Right,
Because she
yeah.
said to me, Anthony, the problem is these businesses are not taking they're not taking advantage of the opportunities. And so the likes of Kaki and all these guys, they're out there waving the flag,
That's right.
but they're not effectively delivering or connecting the dots, because she's saying we don't have the data to support a lot of the arguments we're making. And the opponents of the program said, you want more, but you can't even demonstrate that you're
That you've
achieving
done
your
what you're
goals.
supposed to do here.
And so she was looking for these community organizations to provide the
The
support.
data. Yeah.
And there's no data.
Right.
So the challenge she gave me was, Anthony, all of what you're talking about sounds good, but the problem, and unless we have a way, we create a process or a system that helps to facilitate to get us to where we can measure what we're doing, we're not achieving anything here. And so
And you create and I think one of the ways that I'll keep this off record, but I think one of the ways to do that is get people to play in the same sandbox. So you're talking about all these different organizations, but they too are working in silos. So we're talking about, okay, so you have the Black Chamber, you have the Hispanic Chamber, you have the Green Chamber, you have the Orange Chamber, but everyone is responsible for their own membership, and
they're not working.
coming
They're not working
right,
together.
right.
They're not working together.
That's how you
I can speak.
Go ahead.
No, I'm talking about.
We're going
that
back. We're
guy.
going back.
Okay.
All right, folks, welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Economic Roundtable. And I have some folks in the studio with me, and there's a lot to cover. And lucky for me, and I'm hoping that they have the luxury of time. Our guest is looking quite beautiful, lovely in her tropical pastel colors, wonderful dress. And so you can hear her, and she's quite articulate and very eloquent. But I'd like to invite you to see her. She is not only just smart and dynamic, but she's beautiful as well, inside and out. So
Thank you.
go to www.kalaloo.com, KALLALLOO.com. Once you get to the site, click on the live menu button, and you can click on our small business TV on our small business channel. All right, let's get right back into this because there's a lot to talk about. Let me start with David, because David didn't speak very much in the last when we had the guest on before. David, based on what you've heard so far, there's a lot that we can talk about. But what's your response to what you've heard so far?
Thank you. Mhm. Mhm. Ah. Mhm. 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 Mm. Mhm. 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 So thank you so much, David, for by way of explanation for explaining that to me. And so two things I'm going to add. One, my role is that of the advocate, and so I work with the small business, existing business, and businesses that are starting up. The SBA role that I see to increase entrepreneurship, to help businesses become even more successful. Because one thing I can say, David, about the Virgin Islands is that the Virgin Islands small businesses are creative. So they find a way out of no way at all to really be successful. And I'm in awe when I talk to them about some of the barriers that they're able to overcome. And then they give me best practices to share with other parts of the region. And so I'll start off by saying that. I think that the same thing as I said to Anthony, I think a way to increase is or and to improve the programs. One is to continue to be on the ground talking to the small business. I think that is key in any program that is being instituted by anyone. I mean, a lot of times programs miss the mark because the organization or agency will come in believing that they already know what that particular area needs without asking. And I think that that is a huge problem. So I think the first thing and the most important thing is to be on the ground. One of the things that I'm going to be doing tomorrow is I'll be touring the incubator program. One of the other things that I do, I always make it a point to go to small businesses and talk to them about what's going on. I get into the cabs and I want to know how the cab industry is doing. I want to know how the small businesses are doing. I want to understand more what's going on as far as the economy is concerned. And then I'm taking that information back as well to headquarters and to the Office of Advocacy and sharing that so that we can increase the participation of what's going on with small businesses. And more importantly, we can understand it better. So I think the education piece that I shared with Anthony is key, highlighting the importance of why you should be a part of, the island is a hub zone. Find out, understand why you should be a hub zone, why you should be a certified hub zone, or why you should be certified 8A. And then also, using the leverage of the Small Business Administration in the way that we do and bringing in the other federal family. Bringing in GSA to the space and saying, listen, there's some successful small businesses here in the Virgin Islands and they're doing X, Y, and Z. When you're looking at contracting opportunities, you should think about the Virgin Islands, or bringing in the Department of Labor or the Army Corps of Engineers or any of the other agencies that we work closely with, bringing them into the territories and exposing them to the excellent work that the small businesses are already doing. And I think those are some ways to increase participation, to educate the small businesses, and more importantly, to put a name with a face when we're bringing in the contracted officers and actually having a meeting or a workshop and a program, and they're actually able to meet the individual that may do contracting with them later on. So they can actually call up and ask the question if they have one, or get feedback on something if they don't understand it. And I think those are ways to change the game as it relates to small businesses here in the Virgin Islands or in any of the territories or any of the region that I cover. I think that's the way to do it, David.
Okay, so Anthony, if I can take just another couple of minutes with some more observations.
Absolutely, go ahead.
I also served on the Workforce Investment Board in the Virgin Islands for a few years, and one of the challenges that we faced, the entire board, looking at what kind of labor programs could be deployed or would be useful in increasing job access, skills, training, things of that sort for people in the Virgin Islands. One of the frustrations that we were observing is that the U.S. Virgin Islands has what I think a former labor commissioner, in fact, remarked was a high number of chronically unemployable people in the Virgin Islands. So not chronically unemployed, but unemployable because of skills deficiencies that were difficult to overcome. So we have an economic challenge in terms of providing paths forward for people who are needing that level of skills development, skills enhancement. And when you couple that with the fact that our economic development programs, one of which I led for many years, generally focus on attracting businesses from outside of the Virgin Islands to come into the Virgin Islands to participate in job creation and expansion and diversification of our economy. All of that kind of boils down to this picture where you have companies that are coming in that generally already have access to external funding and certainly have access to external markets because they've come from external, globally facing marketplaces. And then we have our own workforce that has some skills deficiencies and skills issues and generally does not have experience necessarily working in a global market or serving a global market with products and services. And I'm wondering what role the SBA can play in this, because I think that ultimately, if we're going to define success for the Virgin Islands economy, then the economic development programs of the USVI really need to be owned emotionally by the people of the U.S. Virgin Islands. It can't just be seen as bringing in outsiders to come and build businesses and there's some jobs that are created as well. It has to be about Virgin Islanders being able to build companies that are not just serving each other, because we're a small economy, not growing. It's hard to get ahead. But instead, finding ways to get Virgin Islanders positioned so that they can sell their products and services outside of the VI. And I like what you're saying about advocacy, because I do see the federal programs being perhaps a way that Virgin Islands businesses can tap into that. But ultimately, it's got to be the private sector too. It can't just be about what are Virgin Islanders doing to serve the needs of the federal government.
Right. A couple of things. So two things you brought up. One, I'm going to say public-private partnerships are definitely needed, and they're always very important. But I think you're missing a huge component here. I don't agree with a large number of unemployable. I believe that some of that deficiency can be met simply with the University of Virgin Islands. I think they're doing a phenomenal job. And I think one of the things that, as just being on the ground, talking to small business, talking about retention. The last conversation I had with the University of Virgin Islands was like, how do we retain the students? You know, they're coming, they're getting a fabulous education, and then they're leaving, going mainland, and not staying here where we need them to start those businesses that you're talking about, right? So I think that, you know, utilizing the resources that you have in this great institution that is the University of the Virgin Islands to get these students that are already on the ground, that are, you know, to engage them more by connecting them to small businesses that already exist, by bringing in community people, you know, and paying them a stipend or paying them a little or something. And that's where the public-private partnerships come about. And then getting them to because what we have to do is re-engage them, right? So we're getting the students to be re-engaged so they'll stay into the Virgin Islands by getting them to work with small businesses that they're interested in, so that they can see how to run their own business. When they graduate, they can start a business or work within that business or work within an organization that they're interested in. So we're keeping that retention gap is getting smaller. And then we're bringing in the individuals that he is referring to as being unemployable, and giving them this certain skill set to work with. Not, you know, and we're building a generation gap, because a lot of these individuals, I believe, may be older and are not as acclimated to like the computers or different systems like that. So now you're introducing them to those resources that already exist and that technology that already exists, and ultimately can give them a paying job as you're building their skill set. Now, the reason that I'm using this as an example, because retention is always key when you have a university as, you know, as such a great institution as the ones here in the Virgin Islands and the one over in Puerto Rico, whereas you're looking to educate them, but you also want to keep them. And I think if you want to address this gap of skill set, you want to address also this gap of students that are just getting this great amount of training and leaving. You also want to address that as well. And I think a way to do that is you have the University of the Virgin Islands, who's already doing some wonderful work, to tap into their internships, to use their internships to work with the small businesses, and have the small businesses bring in the community, and have the community individual build their skill set. And I think that is a way that you're able to do two things at once as you're building the economy within the Virgin Islands. That's one way. The other thing you asked, what can SBA do? Again, I'm housed in the SBA, but I'm independent in the SBA. Independent meaning that I am the voice of small business as it relates to regulatory concerns. I think, but in saying that, I say because I am housed in the SBA and I work closely with the resources that are available to help small businesses grow, I think a way that they can do that, as well as working with, continue to work with the small businesses that they're working with, and also working with the university to kind of, because that skill gap, I need to address it on both sides. Whereas the retention and the skill set, building the skill set, I think the SBA, the resource partners that we work with, I think that is a way to do both things.
I'm going to bring in my other colleagues, David, Edison, and Donna. But let me go with Edison first. And the reason I'm saying this because Edison is currently a lender. He's a banker. And when I was a banker in my former life, one of the things my former colleague, because Carl Christensen was a member to the Money Talk.
Yes.
So he was a regular contributor. But one of the things that he said in terms of when you look at the availability of funds or funding to capitalize businesses, it was a huge problem here in the territory.
And even more so now.
Why? Because the regional banks that are here, not the big national banks, the banks from Puerto Rico, and then you had the boutique banks, really weren't, even though you had the SBA there as a guarantor or a form of insurance of if someone did default, the lender was protected. Not sure what just happened there. Okay, what was that? What is that? What is that? Hold on a second. Hold on. Okay. Okay. All right, guys. Not sure what happened. I think Alpha, yeah, it's fixed. Okay. Whatever you did. Okay. I think we're good. Oh, came back. Okay, just leave it like that. Okay, so the point I'm making is, look, is when you don't have cooperations by the lending community, you could have all of the programming resources and tool available, but you need the funding community, the lending community to do their part in order to stimulate and pump money into the economy. I think we just lost the virtual studio. We'll reconnect. We're going to take a break. After I make this point, we'll take a break. But I want the point excuse me, the point I want to make is, how does the SBA, doing what you do, get the lenders, the local lenders, to do the right thing? Excuse me. Do the right thing. Do the right thing in terms of their part in making sure capital is available for these businesses.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll take a break. Come back. We'll pick it up from there. I have to reconnect the virtual studio, and then we'll take it from there, folks. This is the Economic Roundtable here on WSDX 970 AM and the Kahlo Network. We'll be right back.
Well, that was the thing we were talking about this morning, access to capital.
Access to capital, right.
It's the biggest challenge.
It's one of the biggest challenges here. And like you said, the boutique banks, so the Virgin Islands, we don't have any banks. We have the Bank of St. Croix, and I believe the Bank of St. Thomas. Everything else is coming by way of Puerto Rico. And so Puerto Rico's economy is in a mess. And so, I'm not going to say that.
Yes, but when I go to Miami, Puerto Rico, First Bank is funding all of these big commercial projects. So there's something awry here.
Something awry.
Something awry. Something I missed here. Something awry. Something's going awry here. I need you to jump in.
Whenever Anthony
ask you a question.
Say something.
Hey guys, I'm going to reconnect the studio. Hold on. Can you hear me? Okay, good. Hold on, please. I'm calling now. Okay, it's ringing.
Let me see it flash.
Okay, the studio's okay, guys, sit tight. We just reconnected the studio. Hold on.
So they're back on.
All right, folks, let's jump right in the best interest of time. Let's keep things going here. We're having a rather stimulating, thought-provoking, productive discussion here on the program. Why? Because it's what we're discussing is how do we fix, how do we stimulate and spur economic growth in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And as you know, every week we are pushing the envelope on that front. Our position, SETI's mission, is growing local economies and strengthen the private sector to help our communities become more prosperous by leveraging all assets to support local entrepreneurs, finding the best solutions for our community by working with you to identify local assets, potential partners, and technical resources needed to create and sustain an entrepreneurial support initiative. Just before the break, help me to understand, when I came back and I convinced my investor, Ocean First Bank, to invest $300 million, the reason they were willing to do that is because we had partners, investor partners like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, as partners. What they're saying is, we're willing to take a risk. We're willing to risk the bank's money. But if, based on the data that says, based on the default rate, if we have some sort of mechanism that to protect our investor, we're willing to come in. So Ocean First Bank, a thrift federal chartered bank, left New Jersey and invested in Virgin Islands. Never been done before. That's because they had the assurance by their investors like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and IndyMac, and all these different lenders to say, okay, if you come in, we got your back.
Right.
Why isn't that the case with the commercial banks and having the likes of the SBA saying we're gonna guarantee, we're gonna insure these loans, and so therefore go ahead and pump the money into the community? What's the disconnect?
Okay, so I can't tell you what the disconnect is, but what I can tell you what experience has shown, right? So basically, and this is a conversation, access to capital is always key. Carl Christensen was, phenomenal in looking at creative ways to kind of fix that disconnect. Because what's happening when we're talking to small businesses, they're saying the banks aren't lending. When we're talking to the banks, they say small businesses aren't applying for loans, right?
Oh,
so there is a
it.
disconnect. So what Carl was able to do was to get Celtic Bank to invest in small business loans here in the Virgin Islands. And so Celtic Bank there's no deposits, right? So you're not depositing any money in Celtic Bank. Celtic Bank is just merely loaning to the small businesses, based on all of their credentials and based on their ability to pay back. And they were lending to the small businesses here in the Virgin Islands. One of the issues that arose out of that, and it was going really well. Carl did a phenomenal job going to Florida and encouraging them to come and invest in the Virgin Islands.
It wasn't easy.
It wasn't easy at all. It wasn't easy at all. But one of the challenges then became, as I understand it, and I'm going to preface it by saying that as I understand it, the challenge then became the Celtic Bank then being asked to pay a fee in order to invest in small businesses, and they're like, wait a minute. We're not pay a fee in order to do business in the Virgin Islands.
What was that fee?
To do business in the Virgin Islands, the other banks have to pay a fee. So they felt like if Celtic is lending to Virgin Islands, they should have to pay a fee as well.
But they don't have the benefit of the depositors.
Absolutely, and that was their challenge.
The local banks had the depositors, and
right.
Celtic didn't have depositors. So how do you
that was
balance that out?
You don't. And so Celtic Bank. Hello, Don. Is it? Yeah. Hi, former Congresswoman. How are you? Good. Go ahead.
Local banks were lending, and that really was a problem.
That was.
I just wanted to jump in because I was running through that time here.
Right.
So thanks for coming back. It has been wonderful.
Thank you.
You've been working with us for years. You came down, worked with us with USDA, worked with us with other agencies. Make sure that our businesses understood what was there for them and how to access it, and it made personally available for council as people move to the process. I just like to say that. CSA too, a lot of work with CSA to make sure that they understood that we have businesses here with the federal government contract.
Mm-hmm. So the thing that I'm doing, one of the groups of meetings that I have is with the legislators to see if that's something, and because as I understand it, I understand it, it's legislation. So I'm going to be meeting with the legislators and asking, is this possible to do, and how do we go about it? Because Carl brought it here, it was being done. And so if there is, like you said, you're looking for policy.
Without the legal framework,
right.
Policy framework,
Absolutely.
There's no enforcement.
Right.
And so you have, folks just kind of doing whatever they want to do.
Right.
And the reason we were successful as a lender is we saw opportunities where we became specialists in FHA lending, 203K type loans. Folks want construction loan. We came in, we were a strong lender in construction loans. We had corresponding relationship with the Virgin Islands Community Bank and Bank of St. Croix. They had their depositors, but they didn't want to take the long-term risk. What we did was we did the long-term financing, and then they provided the short-term construction loan, and then we bought them out. That's why they were, they did that because we provide that sort of very strategic, creative approach to saying, okay, we need to pump more money into capital into the market. Tell us what you want, and once we demonstrated that, the VI Community Bank and Bank of St. Croix were amenable to taking the risk.
That's right.
And so this is more of that. We need to do more of this. And so, but like you said, the legal framework, the policy framework is important.
That's right.
Because without that, these guys they're not going to do it.
In a
okay?
regulatory framework.
In a regulatory
Absolutely.
framework.
And that's why we can make that, we can connect those dots.
Right.
You know, because my thing is, I don't think that the legislators, some of the legislators may not know that this existed. And so my job is to make sure that I'm giving them the information that they need, you know, sharing.
No, it's more of competition. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you straight up. The reason we did well, and we became effective, is because besides the regional banks that were here, there was no competition.
Yeah.
So when we came in, now we created the competition, and it now forced the other bank to start playing in the sandbox.
Right.
And that's what we did. I want to bring in Edison. Edison, I'm sure he has been waiting patiently, chomping at the bits. He's you know. Edison, the floor is yours, man.
Yeah, you know, one of my thoughts, you know, with this conversation, I think one of the things that we need to touch on too is because of the size of the Virgin Islands economy, it's important for businesses to have a local global strategy in order to be successful. And I want to know in the area of helping businesses transition from just a local focus to a local global strategy. I mean, can you tell me what's out there to help these businesses transition into a local global strategy so they can be more successful in such a small economy?
Right. Thank you so much for sharing your question with us. I think one of the things that we keep in mind first is that the president's initiative, the President of the United States initiative, was to increase exporting and importing. And so one of the things that can help is the international trade. There's several programs that are available, and I'll share them with you, Anthony. I'll send the links to you. But what we're finding is that by educating the small businesses on how to do business globally, we're able to get more businesses to do business globally. Because if you want to do business, say, I don't know, pick a place. If you want to do business in Brazil, or if you want to do business in Africa, or if you want to do business in any other place, there are certain things that you must do to do businesses in those spaces. And so I think that the international trade, being able to educate small businesses on how to do that through the SBA and different other there's federal government programs that are now in place, Edison, that can assist the small businesses. And I think one of the ways that I can help make that happen is by giving you access to that information, so that as we're going along and we're talking to businesses and we see that they're interested in doing business globally, we can share some of that, or some of the resources that are already available, already existed, already doing that type of work. And even some of the success stories with some of the businesses that are actually are already global business. And I think that that'll be a way to kind of move the envelope on that. For helping them, educating them, and moving them forward so that they are able to do business globally, because they're strategically placed right here. And so being able to do business on the right, the left, and in the back of where Virgin Islands is, I think is key to growing the economy as well.
Yeah, I think one thing that we do have to do is try to change the mindset of a lot of these local businesses, because whether they acknowledge it or not, they're operating in a global economy.
Yes.
The things that they're selling in their stores, they are actually competing against companies all around the world,
including Amazon,
via the internet. But the competition with a lot of these businesses seems to be just a one-way competition, where other global businesses are competing with them, and a lot of these small businesses just don't understand or know how to compete for international in the global market.
Right, and I agree with that. I think that one of this conversation really took a head spin last year when I keynoted the investment summit for Senator Janet Mellon Young, when she brought in investors, global investors, to the Virgin Islands. But more importantly, we were able to see Virgin Islands small business showcased in a very different way. So the ag business was showcased and how we can do business globally. The different mom and pops were showcased on how we can do business globally. Even some of the banking industry was there on how to do business globally. And I think that also connecting those dots of what happened in that summit and what's moving forward is also key. We're talking education, we're talking changing the mindset. And I think for me personally, what's been one of the ways to change the mindset of small businesses is that I work with is success stories. They want to see the success stories. They want to see that mom and pop that right next to me was able to go global, and here's how they did it. It's one thing for me to come in and say, you're operating in a global economy, let's move forward. And it's another thing for me to say, you're operating in a global economy, so-and-so right next to you has done it, let's move forward. They're more willing now to move forward because they've seen it done. And I think that's been my experience. I don't know, Edison, if that's been an experience for anybody else here, but showing them those success stories is also very key to moving them in the right direction.
You know, when you also think, and just to kind of piggyback off of what Edison was saying, there's also the inherent culture.
Oh yeah.
In a minority community.
Right.
Not just
that's why I got to see Cassandra.
Not
Cassandra
just the Virgin Islands. Okay. Minorities of community across the board, families. What's instilled in us early on is to, go to school, get a good education, get a degree, and go get yourself a good job. Okay, get a paycheck. Right. Okay, and that was provide that security blanket for you and your family. This idea, the notion of being an entrepreneur, a free-spirited enterpriser, industrious person, go out, take a risk. We are very risk adverse.
Right.
It's just who we are. And how do you transition or transform a community that, number one, the Virgin Islands economy is primarily a government economy. When we had Hovenza, and Hovenza was a huge force to be reckoned with in terms of job creation, the government was still the largest employer.
That's right.
Okay. Privately, Hovenza was the second largest employer. Now, obviously, when Hovenza shuttered, it exposed the weakness of the private sector because you didn't have a reliable, it was reliable. You had a single, if you will, entity that was really driving the economy. And so you put all your eggs in one basket, and therefore it makes you vulnerable, it exposes you, and it creates a problem. If we had a different approach where we were really from early on encouraging individuals to become business owners, to create businesses, okay, because you are the engine of the economy. The reason why there was a strong bipartisan support out of Washington for the Jobs Act and Obama was because the notion was after the Great Recession, we were drunk on, our homes were ATMs. You had all these crazy venture capitals.com deals. I mean, money and the fact that they deregulated regulations where it made it easier for people to invest. The problem is now the Great Recession was created. Okay, then you had a situation where now we create. How do we now recover from the Great Recession on the brink of a depression back in the 1920s? And so now we have a situation where we're now saying, the president and Congress is saying, instead of encouraging people to go look for work, let's provide the tools and the resources necessary for them to create businesses to become the job creators, as opposed to just simply out there looking for work. And so how do you address the issue of culture, which is a challenge and a hindrance to say, okay, folks, the only way you're going to have a viable, strong economy is the private sector, not the government. So hold that thought. When we come back, I want you to get your thoughts on that. This is the Economic Roundtable. We're going to transition next into NBC Live in the Marketplace on AM 970 WSJX and the Kalaloo Network. I'm Anthony Weeks. We'll be right back.
I love the music.
Yeah.
Money, 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 money.
One of the things that we spoke about earlier too in our chamber meeting with Terry is that parents do not encourage their children to, even if the parents are entrepreneurs, their children don't feel committed or obligated to really carry on the family business. So it drops because when they get out of whatever their educational institution is, they're looking for a job.
That's right.
And They want what they think is the get rich quick kind of thing, and they see that as a job, not necessarily as the hard work that their parents put in, that they would have to continue
right,
to
to
put in
continue
to
the
keep it going.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's why you have to get the buy-in young.
Yep.
You have to get them.
Absolutely.
You have
Now,
to
did
get
you,
them buy-in
did you
young.
tell her that you, Ryan, we need to huddle together?
Yeah.
Did you did?
Yes. She told me to meet with you. I need to meet with you.
There's a lot we need to talk about.
You don't trust me?
No. I am so happy you're here because
I'm happy to be here. This is exciting.
just the things that we have on the table to grow this economy, we need to have all the right strategic partnerships on board because it's about marshaling the resources to create the agenda to move things forward.
Absolutely.
And as much as the local government is us the people, they ain't got no money. They ain't got no money. Okay? And so the fact that the government broke, the local businesses are broke, that we now have to create a strategy and agenda that identify potential funding source and other resources that will work to help build the private sector.
That's right.
And this is what we need to talk about. You don't mind me using my Prussian?
No.
Okay.
Not at all. I was waiting on it to come out. You used it the first time we had a conversation.
You know when my daughter.
Hey, you.
Hey, you
What's
back?
going on?
Hello.
Oh yeah.
What does it say? Hillary now?
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah.
And then.
And then.
Yes.
Well, this is the new show now.
Oh, okay.
So this
we're
is
gonna
a
let
guest
her
for
move
your
on.
new-
No. Stay right here. I'm gonna pull up a chair for her. No. I'm just letting you know that there's
a new show.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be right with you. Don't do anything. Don't do any work. I'll fix it. Let me just get us on the air here. I have beautiful ladies in the studio. I'm excited, Alfie.
Oh
You're showing
god.
it too much.
Okay, all right. I'm too excited. I'm too excited. All right.
Be cool. Be
Exactly.
cool.
If not, you run them off. Then they'll be like, oh, he's kind of crazy.
Oh gosh. That's so funny.
So when are you coming back our way?
October.
You do the party.
In New York.
Party.
Huh?
Party. That's the goal. Let's go. Okay.
All right, we're live. All right, folks, welcome back, and we have now we've ended the economic roundtable, but my colleagues are still with us. We are having a spectacular show. I am just so stimulated mentally, intellectually by the guests in the studio, and we're talking the kind of stuff that SETI is all about. But we are now in the MBC Live in the Marketplace show. And of course, we talk about markets, business, and consumer news, as well as we look at the various topics to talk about. Real quickly, according to the latest report, as of 8:55 a.m., Hertz to split into two publicly traded companies. Again, Hertz, the rental company, to split into two publicly traded companies. And as of 9:35 a.m., U.S. stocks edge upwards ahead of key Fed Chair Janet Yellen's speech in Philadelphia. Also, taking a look at the major market indexes, we have the three markets and the world markets. Right now, Dow Jones Industrial is up plus 0.55%. The NASDAQ Composite is up plus 0.40%. S&P Standard & Poor's 500 is up plus 0.30, plus 60%. This is real time, folks. It's ticking and it changes as we speak. You have here the 10-year yield if you were invested in the treasury bond, and you want to know what the interest rate is. The 10-year yield is 1.73%. Then you have oil per barrel is $49.35. The Japanese yen is up, also trading at 107.36 yen. The euro is trading at $1.14 US dollars. That's down. Precious metal gold is trading at $1,246.80. Top investment stories: bond bubble bursting. Don't hold your breath. U.S. oil export rise sevenfold in first 3 months. Stock, let's see, it says here, America's economy is stronger than weak jobs report. Japanese, the Nikkei 225 is down minus 0.37%. Hong Kong Hang Seng is up plus 0.40%. The London FTSE 100 is up plus 1.03%. Germany DAX is up plus 0.18%. And as far as the other commodities are concerned, natural gas is trading at $2.44. Silver is trading at $16.46. Corn is trading at $4.25. The British pound, for every British pound, it's trading at $1.44. And the Chinese yuan is trading at $6. It's not $6, 6.56 yuan. All right, so we're back, folks. I just wanted to kind of give a quick look at the markets. The question that I presented to you, I hope you've had an opportunity to digest that, reflect on it. I think the crux of what we're having and what we're challenged with is the culture and the mindset of people of color and how they view risk in terms of investing and really exposing their hard-earned income and disposable income. What do you say about that?
So I'm going to give you a little nugget that Dr. Adelaide Sanford gave to me a while back when we were at a Black Enterprise conference. One of the things that was being said, it was a women-owned business conference, and all men were on the stage, and they were sharing with us how to be successful, how to get to the C-suite. And a lot of the information that was being shared wasn't really information that was helpful for those of us that were already either in the C-suite or moving closely to the C-suite. And so I said to Adelaide, I said, how do we get the conversation to change? And how do we get them to talk things that are relevant to us? And she took a look at me and she said, you start with the children. And so I say all of that to say, when we're talking about a cultural shift, when we're talking about cultural changes as it relates to being risk adverse, as it relates to starting our business, as it even relates to young people actually going into their parents' successful businesses, I think you have to expose them early to the idea, like we expose them to, you go get a good government job, or you go get a good job and you get a paycheck and you work hard and you move up. We expose them now to entrepreneurship. We expose them now to, we get the buy-in early from the young people. That's how you're going to change the culture. You can't start with someone my age or a little older and say, you know what, I want you to go take risks. Because I'm in the industry long enough to know that I need a pension.
But wait a minute, Terry. That's ironic. Let me tell you why.
Okay.
Because the data is saying that you have less young people venturing into business and people 50 and up becoming the new norm
the new
in
entrepreneurs. Absolutely.
So that dynamic is, I guess, it's ethnic driven.
Right.
I guess.
I'm talking culture.
Culture.
Yeah, I'm talking culture. Okay. I'm talking culture because I had a great opportunity to actually meet with the chamber before I came over to get on the first radio show. And one of the things that we were talking about in that chamber meeting is that a lot of successful businesses, they're not being taken over by the children. The children are not taking over the business later on. And one of the reasons why is
passing up the baton.
Exactly.
Right.
One of the reasons why is you don't get the buy-in from the children early. Whereas I have a business in New York, it's called Park Avenue Building Supply. And it's been around for a significant amount of time, but the children actually are part of the business from young. So at 12 years old, they're starting into the business. They go out and get their master's degrees, their law degrees, and they come back with an idea that they're going to run the business successfully. And they're building up generation of Park Avenue Building Supply managers and trainers and facilitators and CEOs from young. And so when I say that, I'm talking, you asked me, the first question was about culture. And so you change the culture by starting young and exposing them to it young. That's the way I see you changing the culture of individuals.
Cassandra, you've been waiting.
Yeah, Cassandra, jump in.
You've been waiting to just say your part and contribute. I can't imagine. I mean, I'm going to strap myself in because I know you got something that you're going to.
It's so been covered. But I do sit on the board of the Chamber of Commerce.
That's right. We have the chamber.
That's right.
We have the St. Croix Chamber of Commerce in the house.
I really just want to start off by thanking Terry for meeting with us earlier today, because many of these same topics that we have discussed over the last hour or so have been topics that concern the chamber and that we want to do more about. The chamber now is about 125 members. We've had more in the past.
That number has declined significantly.
It has.
Wow.
And in a large part because we've lost businesses,
Mhm.
particularly small businesses. The other concern that the chamber has is the diversity of the chamber. And that's what we're looking
That's
at
a
now.
big issue.
Trying to
That's a big
expand
issue.
The diversity
Locals
of the
don't
chamber.
feel that it's their chamber, so
That's exactly right. And so that's one of the reasons that I got involved, because I saw a big void there, and we can do so much together, which harkens back to what you had said earlier. If we get the community groups together and those with like interests, there's such power in numbers that we can definitely make a difference. You speak about young people being entrepreneurs. The Junior Achievement Program, which is in the Virgin Islands, is an excellent
but
example of
these
that.
things have been around though. And so the question mark I have
Mhm.
is, if they've been around, why haven't we seen the impact or the result of these types of programs?
Well, that was
What's-
going to be my question.
Oh, there
to
you go. Okay, go. You were going to ask me that.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry.
So, do you have any idea where? What road can we go down to get young people more involved?
I have a saying. Okay, I'm a visionary, and the
Mhm.
reason I'm a visionary because I didn't go to school to learn what I know as a visionary.
Mhm.
In my DNA, I come from a family of entrepreneurs.
Right.
Oh.
It's just who I am.
Captain Weeks.
Exactly. My grandfather, my dad, my uncles.
There was
These are-
buy-in early.
Yeah,
There was
yeah,
young people. that
There
were
were,
getting
so
happy.
it's I can't help myself.
Right.
Okay. So the question becomes, I think, in early education.
Mhm.
Okay, where it's part of the curriculum, where we're telling the youngsters, the pre-K, kindergartens, all the way up, we need to be able to create that environment, and that's not the environment. So
Right.
so when you say where the problem lies, you could have these external program, but the problem is too late then.
Right.
Because
Exactly.
the culture and the mindset has been conditioned for, and have laid the foundation
That's
that
right.
they're not, even though these things exist,
Mhm.
you might as well say they don't, because they don't really see that. They don't see that image of themselves
Right.
going down that
Going
path.
So we're saying the same thing, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
basically
exactly.
the same thing.
I hope, did I answer your question?
Well, somewhat.
Somewhat,
So,
okay.
so now we need the solution, and the solution is really to bring those programs into the schools, into the communities, and after school programs is a great way to get it started. And I know my daughter went to school in Georgia for a couple of years, and in her school, they had a program called a microeconomic development program, and it taught them young children from first grade up how to be business people in the community. They had their own money. They had to apply for loans. They would each get $1 to invest and to build a product. My daughter was the controller, and this was at 8 years old, and got an idea of how to collect those taxes and make sure that everyone is doing their part. And I think in her it certainly fanned the importance of being an entrepreneur and going on to start her own business. And so I think we do have to come up with innovative ways of doing things, and certainly organizations like the Chamber and even SETI can be really instrumental in making those things happen.
Counselor Attorney Archibald from the BVI said,
Mhm.
when they compared little BVI,
Mhm.
we have a population in excess of 100,000 people.
Mhm.
The BVI has 25,000 people. When asked and compared themselves to the rest of the Caribbean, why is the BVI model so successful? You know what he said? He said, belongers, BV Islanders,
Mhm.
we are economical, we're not political.
Okay.
And see, in
Makes a
their mind,
difference.
early on, they're molded and shaped to think economics.
Mhm.
And so even though they have this 25,000 population, the BVI is globally known as one of the district's financial jurisdiction where companies from all over the world is literally investing. How do you explain 25,000 population, but yet you're talking maybe 700,000 businesses registered in the BVI.
Right.
So much so they don't pay personal income tax. The kind of money that flows through the BVI is just mind-boggling.
Wow.
Okay, and so their position is, and I say this because when the Great Recession took place, I got an invitation by the government of the BVI, their financial service arm, invited me to be a guest speaker because they were an avid listener of Money Talk.
That's right.
And so they wanted me to serve on this panel. And they said, listen, this just happened. What does this mean? What's going to happen? They engaged me. No one in this community engaged me. No one in the U.S. Virgin Islands asked me what I thought about anything. But yet the BV Islanders across the channel said, come over. We want to be your guest. We're going to put you up. We're going to feed you. We want you to be part of this conversation. No one in the U.S. Virgin Islands asked me that to contribute in that level. You see, there's a difference in how we approach, how we're going to tackle these issues.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? A man is not a prophet in his own hometown.
That's
okay,
right.
And so therefore there's that sort of proverbial conventional mindset thinking that we need to get beyond. If we can't get beyond that, nothing is going to change.
That's true. That's true. We really do have to put a lot more value on our own and our resources and those who have perhaps been
If you want to fix
outside
it,
and
if you want to change the quality of life, if you
Right.
want to make things better, you have to. If the system is broken, the wheel is broken, what do? You fix it.
you fix.
Okay, and so we got to be honest and candid with ourselves what we're dealing with. I'm not sure. Just before, I want to be able to say to my colleagues in virtual, who's left over. If there's no one left over, that's fine. I'm fine because I'm in the studio with some beautiful women anyway. So it doesn't matter. David, Edison, Donna, are you still there?
Still here, Anthony. I've got to stop.
Yeah, I'm all good.
You want to provide some closing wrap-up remarks on your end based on what you've heard? I know we've talked about a lot, so the floor is yours. I'll shut up, and you guys can provide some closing remarks.
Well, I was trying to find where I saw this on Facebook, but someone just posted something that said that kids who are socioeconomically disadvantaged hear something like 30 million fewer words by the age of 5 than those who don't have those challenges. And so this kind of wraps the whole thing back into education, I suppose, too. But I think if we're going to be building a community of entrepreneurs, we also have to be thinking holistically about what we can do to make sure that the kids of the Virgin Islands are not in that statistic.
Thanks. Thanks, David. Edison?
Yeah, I think that, we touched on some very important things today in terms of the availability to capital. I think that's an area that's going to continue to be a challenge for the Virgin Islands. But, with some different type of strategic partners, I think that if we can address that, we will be able to position our economy in the Virgin Islands so we can move forward. And I also want to start to encourage, your local entrepreneurs there in the Virgin Islands, not just to think local, but you also have to start thinking global also. Because, the scope of the market in the Virgin Islands is so limited. In order for business to thrive and to create the type of job creation that, we've talked about, entrepreneurs are going to have to start thinking in terms of the global economy.
Absolutely.
All right, absolutely. I don't know if Donna's still there. I know she said she's at the UN with her phone on mute. Donna, let me see if you sent me a text. Let me see. No, you did not. What I want to do is say thank you, my colleagues, for your contribution. This is to be continued. I do have my other guests in the studio for NBC Live. The representative, the director for the Caribbean diaspora for the Hillary Clinton campaign. She's here, and she's going to give us some wrap-up report as to what took place over the weekend in the Virgin Islands and the Puerto Rico presidential caucus primary. She's in the studio. Dr. Karen Green is with us. When we come back, we'll have a conversation This is NBC Live and the Marketplace. I'm Anthony Weeks. We'll be right back.
Well, you know, we're not supposed to mix political
No,
and
no.
government.
No, you'll provide some.
Yes,
You can hang out, but
I
you
mean,
can just.
I'm
You
ready.
just I want you to provide some.
This
information.
was so good. It was a robust conversation. Now I'm going to go back to SBC and see if we can do a global something on a global.
What I got for you to say,
Okay.
you're stealing
I'm
the
awake,
thunder.
I'm awake,
You
I'm
are
awake.
stealing the thunder. You are totally stealing the
So here,
thunder.
let's.
We
I don't
gonna
I
see
don't
you in.
want you to steal the thunder.
Can you get a quick picture of us?
Yeah. You can move that down a little bit, you know, so he can find you.
Please don't ask me what the final count is needed tomorrow. It's relevant because we still have a.
Don't ask or do ask.
Do not ask yet
Okay.
until I.
They said it was 19. They said it was 19.
I said 19 earlier.
All the press, all the media press are saying it's
Yeah,
19.
they're saying 19. I saw something
You don't
different.
believe
a while
that?
ago.
You saw something different? Really?
Yeah. Did I text you something earlier? Sorry. Sorry.
We're trying to. Trying to.
Yeah, I'm at the post office. Where's the station? That's not the
Prior
one.
to that.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Um,
We're going to hang out, but we're going to let you
No,
guys.
no.
You guys can see, no problem. No problem.
Then she just, and that's me, she can't get political.
Yeah. Oh, sorry about that.
No.
So she'll be here, but she's just not going to engage. Cassandra can. Cassandra's, you know.
Cassandra's the chamber. She can.
No, Cassandra's the one who doesn't want to be in the picture.
If you
What?
give me
You want to be
somebody-
silent? No, I want to get you silent. I want to get you silent. You're a political animal.
What?
You're a political animal. What are you talking about?
Oh gosh.
Thank you.
I actually saw a different number a while ago.
What numbers did you say?
17. Yeah, but I cannot misrepresent the
Well,
truth.
go with the higher. So if it comes in lower, you're safe. And you use a number that's consistent with everybody
It's
else.
publicly displayed.
Exactly. Now you are live, so if you want to send out, you send out.
What's the cue?
It's I sent the I sent you the text.
I wasn't prepared for that.
I know that, but I sent you the text. It's kalaloo.com, and you click the link. If you should have it. All right, folks. No, okay.
Martinis Lounge and Nightclub and iGreat Promotion presents the Eye to the World, the true Father's Day industry.
You found it?
Featuring the eye artist that
You want me to resend it again?
This must have been from yesterday, probably.
I can resend it.
Thank you much.
yes, Revelation the Lion. Revelation the Lion.
There ain't no place like the Virgin Island. Bring back the love to the community. Imagine we to the east side, making perfect unity. Frederick's head and Krishna now.
We'll be live in concert Saturday, June 11th at Martinis Lounge and Nightclub. The verdict is out. Virgin Islands to the world.
I just sent it.
Live on WSTN.
It said 22.
100 is being
Huh?
heard around
Not 19, but 22.
22. Let me resend this because I gotta correct something.
Virgin Island also featuring iRader, Kiva, Fire Emblem, and Ninja.
All right, go with the second text I just sent you.
Before midnight, prices are given away all night as Kiva.
It's an old message, but just follow the link where it says www.kalaloo.
Okay.
Copy and paste and just get rid of your stuff.
I'm still somewhat challenged with the phone system here. It's coming in really late. 1 second.
Who's your provider?
T-Mobile.
Big sales, big discounts, big savings. We are truly stepping it up this year, featuring our 2016 Toyota Tacoma, Highlander, RAV4, Camry,
Corolla, and 2016 Yaris. All models are fuel efficient and equipped with the latest technology such as Bluetooth, reverse camera touchscreen, USB auxiliary port, as well as navigation system in some models, and much more. Our 2015 models must go. Yes, we said it must go. Also, our used car inventory has vehicles as low as $6,000. Our professional staff at Island Toyota are here to accommodate your demands and
Was
needs
Donna in
as
New
we
York?
decide to give
Huh?
our
Was
very
Donna in New
selling
York?
guests. So come and see us
Donna
at
is in
1
New
p.m.
York?
Donna, yeah, she's at the UN.
Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And if you don't find what you're looking for, please don't leave till you see our sales manager, Archie Lambert. Island Toyota. Let's go places. News on for the Virgin Islands. AM 970 WSTX.
All right, folks, welcome back, and thank you so much. Just real quickly, Burberry CEO gets 75% pay cut. That's an indication that the retailer is struggling, and obviously the first to take a hit is the person at the top of the food chain, and that is the CEO. I mentioned also that it says a U.S. versus China, 3 economic flashpoints. If we have time, we'll circle back and look at what that is. Jamie Dimon slams rhetoric of election season. Whoa, I wonder who he's directing that at this point. But if we have time, we'll talk about that. But what I'd like to do is real quickly, before I bring in my next guest, I want to play a quick marketplace report just to let you know what's happening in the markets as well. And we will play that first report, and then we'll have a conversation with my next guest that's in the studio, representing the Hillary campaign, the national campaign, who's responsible for the Caribbean diaspora in terms of the getting the vote out message. Let's go straight to that marketplace report here on NBC Live and Marketplace.
Economic policymakers and market professionals got some new information this morning that may change the way we're thinking about the U.S. economy for the worse. The May employment figure was just released showing American payrolls grew by only 38,000, the lowest for a month since 2010. Forecasters were expecting that to be 4 times higher than that, and it is well below the trend. Conversely, the unemployment rate, derived not from counting payrolls but from surveying households, shrunk to 4.7%. For the perspective from the top, let's turn to the U.S. Secretary of Labor, Tom Perez. Secretary Perez, good morning.
Always a pleasure to be with you and your listeners, David.
I know it's just 1 month here, but it's weak. What went wrong?
Well, it was undeniably below expectations, and a big part of it was the Verizon strike. I anticipated that. That's why a few weeks ago I called the parties, invited them to the Labor Department. We spent 2 weeks together and we settled the strike.
Yeah,
But,
they're saying 22, but
the May
No, the
report,
text I sent you today.
the damage
Oh, yeah, I
is
got it.
done,
Thanks, man.
and not only does it have a direct impact on roughly 35,000 workers, but there is a spillover effect that is also there. So that's part of it, but that's not all of it. When I look at
She was on Junior Senator
the
when
history of this recovery, we've had 8 months during the last 6 years or so of this recovery when we've had job growth of less than 100,000. And I've looked back at those, and again, I think it's important to recognize that 1 month doesn't make a trend, because those months were always followed every time by increases in the ensuing months. And so it's important then, I think, to look at the broader picture. And when I look at the broader picture, I see this. Job growth over the year to date has been about 150,000 jobs a month. And we're seeing, and this is important because we often see this trade-off as an economy and the recovery moves toward the stage that it's in. When you get closer to the summit of the mountain of full employment, and we're not there yet, we've still got slack in this economy, you start to see a trade-off where you have less jobs created in a given month, but you start to see earnings go up. And average hourly earnings for private employers have increased 3.2% at an annual rate so far in 2016. That is much better than 2015. It's not where we want it to be, but we're starting to see these upward pressures on wages. And so it seems to me that in the months ahead, number one, we need about 80,000 jobs a month to sustain our low unemployment rate, and we're well above that. And what I think we'll see in the future is we're not going to have too many months of 250,000 jobs like we saw in 2014 and 2015, but that's understandable because the unemployment rate was higher. We were at a lower stage of the mountain where we can climb faster when we're getting up from those lower stages. Now that we're closer to the top, we take smaller steps, but they're also accompanied by wage growth, and that's the trade-off that we see here.
Yeah, no, it's true. Wages were up indeed in these figures today, but you also see the labor force shrinking. It got smaller in May compared to April.
Right, and we've seen that over the last 2 months. We're still ahead of where we were a year ago. And for me, when I look at labor force participation, my main frustration there is we know how to increase labor force participation because we have looked at what the rest of the world has done and done successfully, and that is to pass paid leave laws at a federal level. We're the only nation on the planet we're the only industrialized nation on the planet that doesn't have some form of federal paid leave, and we're the only nation on the planet where paid leave is a partisan issue. Conservative and progressive ruling parties across the world understand that paid leave is a huge part of a strategy for economic growth, because when women succeed and families succeed, your country succeeds. And we used to have the same female labor force participation rates as Canada back in 2000, and now we've fallen way behind because they have sensible paid leave policies and we don't. And if we had simply kept pace with Canada, we'd have 5.5 million more women in the workplace, and our labor force participation rates would be up substantially. So we know what to do at a policy level, but once again, it's very frustrating because the Republican leadership in Congress refuses to do it.
Do you think if the U.S. had more robust paid leave laws, that there would have been more people who would be encouraged to stay in and not have to drop out for a sickness or to have a child or something?
Oh, we see, absolutely, and we see the evidence around the world and here. Again, in 2000, the female labor force participation rates in the U.S. and Canada, women between 25 and 54 were identical. Now Canada is roughly 8 points higher than the U.S., and that's because they have sensible paid leave laws. And if we had simply kept pace, we would have 5.5 million more women in the workplace, adding to the Social Security Trust Fund, adding to the Medicare Trust Fund, making the Silicon Valley and Wall Street and Main Street look more like America, eliminating the unconscionable choices that millions of families are making because they can't afford to have a child. And I meet people all the time who tell me, I want to have a family, but between the child care costs and the absence of paid leave, I can't afford to have a family. And we could do better. If we're a nation that cares about family values, we ought to value paid family leave. And everything is close proximity or the geographic lottery to get access to this. And that's where we're at now. There are some companies that understand and have done the right thing, and there are some states that have done the right thing on paid leave. But the vast majority of people live in, especially people at the lower end of the income scale, don't have that right, and that is unfortunate. So when I hear the Republican complaints about labor force participation, you need to put your money where your mouth is.
And just before we go, I want to make sure I fully understand your first point, which is we have 38,000 added names on payrolls this month. But if you added back in the striking Verizon workers, you get something 38 plus 35 or 36. You get something in the 70,000 for this last month. That's still a little below trend.
Making sure
it's absolutely the Verizon strike accounts for some of the explanation of last month's jobs report. It does not account for everything in this report. And 8 other times in our recovery, we've had reports under 100,000. And I often get asked the same question: is the economy heading toward recession? And it's really important to look at the broader picture. What is the other trend data showing? The other trend data shows the following.
So
We've
a
had
lot of
65
this,
weeks
what
in
I
a row
play,
of first-time
because of
claims
the
for
rhetoric,
unemployment
the stuff that people are just putting out
under
there,
300,000,
and
which
the
is
average
the
person
longest
doing
week
no
since
better, and they're like, oh,
1973.
but you know,
We've had hourly
you say the
earnings
economy's
going
doing well,
up
but that's not what we're hearing.
6.2% at an
You know?
annual rate so
This is
far in
true.
2016, which is a good sign. We're seeing job growth this year of 150,000
You know, they're trying to
jobs
pin Hillary,
per month in 2016, which
obviously,
is lower
because
than
she's
2015, but not
continuing Obama's
unexpectedly
legacy.
so, because
They're
we're
saying,
getting
well,
closer to
wages
the
are
top of the mountain.
down, you know,
And when
jobs
you get
are,
closer
you
to
know,
the top
not
of the
what they
mountain,
used to
the
be,
steps
and
every month are going to be shorter, but they're going to be
I find
accompanied
that to
by
be
wage
so
growth
interesting.
that we're
oh yeah,
seeing. We're not where we need to be, but when you look at this broader picture and the broader picture of consumer spending that
You know, this
continues
is
to
the
be
same
robust,
society
auto
who
sales
said if
robust,
unemployment was under 8%,
it tells us that
it will
the
save.
basic fundamentals continue to
see,
be moving in the right
everybody was
direction.
expecting,
Again, not
because we
without
were
unfinished
in the
business,
height of the
wages
dot-com, the housing
and
bubble,
otherwise. But the
deregulation.
fundamentals continue to be in the right direction.
When you have all those forces
I
together,
learned as trial
and then
lawyer
you
when
have
I had a
those
challenging
forces
day in the
creating this
courtroom.
great
I never
recession.
got too down, and when I had
Now
a
we come
really
out of
good day in
recession,
the
how do you
courtroom,
expect
I
the
never
economy
got
to be
too
like
up.
what
And
created the
I
problem?
never got
And then
too
keep in
giddy.
mind there was
And
also
that
a
serves me well
calculated
in my
effort
role as the
of
labor secretary, because when we
termination of
have a
employment. Yes.
250,000 job month,
And a freeze of hiring.
I don't get too
Deliver
giddy.
freeze
And
of
when we have a
hiring.
month of 38,000, I don't extrapolate too much from that, because 1 month in a good direction or 1 month below expectations never makes a trend. And when you look at where we were and where we've come on a broad range of measures, we've come a long way in this recovery, and we still have a ways to go.
All right, what sounds like our
Broad, very
even-keeled U.S. Labor Secretary, Tom Perez. Secretary Perez, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
The presidential elections are bad news for the economy. During presidential elections, there is a lot of uncertainty. That the not knowing which candidate will win, as well as how and when their policies will take effect, can be a big stressor for businesses. For them, a new president can mean new tax rules and government regulations, and could change the way they operate. You have a situation where you're hearing from all of the pundits giving their position on, you know, who is going to be best for the economy. The idea, the notion, if you have been successful in business, getting someone in from the private sector who's not part of that bureaucratic sort of thinking mentality, that, you know, they would be best at, you know, dealing with the economy. And we've heard so often the term temperament. And for the average person, they're like, okay, so what is the right temperament for someone befitting of the office, the highest office in the land? And so I say this to say that when one contemplates a candidate for public office, you've heard me say it often, a politician, I never really could understand in the past when the word politicians was bantered around. I'm like, why is that a negative word? It has such a negative connotation. Didn't really understand it until after really sort of standing on the sideline and watching and hearing the discussion. And if the voters are used to politicians saying or hearing from politicians telling them what they want to hear, and once they get into office they do something else, I get that. I completely get that. And so the fact is that when you elect a person, you elect someone because you are going to entrust that person with the authority to manage the resources, the vast resources that belongs to the people. And so you want to be able to make sure that that person, you hear the term, commander-in-chief, and of course the president that's going to be in charge. He's going to be the president, or she's going to be the president for all people. And so you have to have a delicate balance between compassion and the ability to be shrewd enough, smart enough to be able to create the kind of government that is going to be responsive to the people. And so we're seeing right now where just because you have been successful in business and you've made, all this money you've made, it doesn't mean that you're the right candidate for the job, because it requires a delicate balance of the right temperament, the right character to do that. Leadership is exemplary in terms of you want to make sure that you want to have the right person that has demonstrated leadership to lead. None of us are perfect, and so therefore none of us should expect another to be perfect. We're going to make mistakes, but politicians make mistakes like everybody else. But what we need to we can't look in isolation. Where if a particular candidate has a blemish or made a mistake in one or two areas, all of a sudden you want to label that politician's entire record as the record for that candidate. And so we got to be very careful when you're gonna judge someone who is going to offer themselves up for office. You have to look at the entire lifespan and career of that person, whether or not they have demonstrated that they have the ability to lead, they have the ability to be compassionate. In economics, we understand, it is said that, could you imagine if national defense, education, and human services, and all these different sort of services that are the kind of service that requires compassion or good judgment, that if you were to privatize these areas of responsibility, transportation, because you believe that the private sector is best at managing that. The problem is, if you allow yourself to think whatever the market can bear, then a lot of people wouldn't be able to afford a lot of things. So there's a lot of things that the private sector can do and do very well, but also there's certain things that they don't do very well. And the same thing goes with the public sector. And so that is my commentary as we look towards what is going to happen in the next less than, should I say 36 hours? I'm going to say 36 hours. As you heard me mention earlier, for the first time in the history of America, a female will be the nominee for president from the Democratic side. And so because of that, it is history. Just like if it was history, Obama, the first African American, became president. History is going to be made tomorrow when the Hillary Rodham Clinton secretary, Hillary Rodham Clinton, is going to most likely pass will clinch or the threshold in terms of becoming the presumptive nominee, because she would have had the combination of the pledged delegate and the super delegate. I think it's disingenuous for Bernie Sanders to say there's a problem with the electorate, the system, and the way the system works. I venture to say if Bernie was in front, if he was in front and he had the benefit of the super delegate, would he be advocating to change the system? But of course he's not there, so then he's going to say, well, there's something wrong with it and we need to change the system. And so you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't say there's a problem and then let's take it to the convention and then try to get the super delegate to change their minds to vote for you. When we come back, my guest in studio is Dr. Karen Green. She is the director for the Caribbean diaspora for the Hillary Clinton campaign. And we're going to get a wrap up from her on both territories, the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, in terms of how things went over the weekend. This is NBC Live and the Marketplace. I'm Anthony Weeks on WSCX 970 and the Kalaloo Network. We'll be right back.
Well done.
They should change the system though and allow the people themselves to select the candidates.
But you can't do the midfield. You can't do that. You can't do the midfield, and that's exactly.
Completely get rid of electoral college.
Exactly.
It's totally unfair for any candidate that wants to run. because whoever are the superdelegates automatically pretty much determine, minus a few other delegates.
In Christensen St. Croix brings you great specials every day with saving in all departments. This week,
You ready?
save on propane tanks with a change for
Yachty?
$29.99 and new
Yeah.
for
Okay, good.
32-inch, 42-inch, and 55-inch LED flat-screen TVs, and bikes of all sizes at all the best prices. 3 pounds of Trident Alaskan salmon burgers for $16.99. 4 pounds of Florida Crystal Sugar, 3 for $5. 3 pounds of Cesar Rojo medium grain rice, also 3 for $5. Assorted Ragu pasta sauces at 2 for $5. USDA Choice London broiled beef shoulder at $5.68 per pound.
We can.
10 pounds of
I'm gonna drop the
$21.99, 750 milliliters of assorted barefoot wines for $5.49. 2 12-packs of Coors Light cans for only $18.99. 1.75 liters of assorted Bugao rums for $15.99. Prices are good through Tuesday, June 7th. Plaza Extra East, open 6:30 a.m. to 11 p.m. 7 days a week and 365 days a year. Save time and money with Plaza Extra East, located near Zion Farm in the United Shopping Plaza. Gift certificates are available. For further information, call 340-778-8240. Plaza Extra East.
Big sales, big discounts, big savings. We are truly stepping it up this year, featuring our 2016 Toyota Tacoma, Highlander, RAV4, Camry, Corolla, and 2016 Yaris. All models are fuel efficient and equipped with the latest technology such as Bluetooth, reverse camera touchscreen, USB auxiliary port, as well as navigation system in some models, and much more. Our 2015 models must go. Yes, we said it must go. Also, our used car inventory has vehicles as low as $6,000. Our professional staff at Island Toyota are here to accommodate your demands and needs as we desire to give you our very, very best. So come and see us at 1B Estate Glen Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And if you don't find what you're looking for, please don't leave till you see our sales manager, Archie Lambert. Island Toyota, let's go places.
Mark the X. This is AM 97 WSDX.
All right, folks, welcome back, and thank you so much for tuning into the NBC Live and Marketplace show here on WSDX 970 AM and the Kalalu Network. Please, we invite you to tune in either on your local radio dial at AM 970 WSDX, and of course, you can watch us online. Go to kalalu.com. That's www.kalalloo.com. That's Kalalu. Kalalu.com. And when you get to Kalalu, you click on the live menu button. You click on the live menu button and you're able to watch my guest. You'll hear her, but obviously we invite you to watch the program online. And so we have my guest, Dr. Karen Green, in the studio. Dr. Green, I call you Dr. Green just to kind of make you feel, let me say congratulations. Congratulations is in order. I know you worked hard since former President Bill Clinton came into town, put on that major event, and you've been your boots to the ground type of thing, and you pulled off a victory here in the U.S. Virgin Islands and in Puerto Rico. So congratulations on the campaign's victory.
On behalf of the party of the campaign, I must say this was not done by me. You're right to say that the territory did an excellent job in delivering the nomination support to our next president, Hillary Clinton. I want to thank the citizens of this territory, the Virgin Islands, the 2 districts and 3 islands, as well as our neighboring Puerto Rico, for having done this excellent job in identifying the strengths of the Democratic Party and the future of what we see as the only way to securing and deterring this evil that we see as an opposed in Donald Trump. We have truthfully set the pace into Super Tuesday. The momentum that was taken here, that started out here in the Virgin Islands by literally almost 3-1 in a voting final turnout. I just want to thank you all in the territory for recognizing the strengths and the hopes and aspirations that our candidate or experienced candidate, who's gone through being not only the passion and the sentiments of knowing what it is to be the First Lady, but one who stood up for civil rights, human rights, children initiatives, women's issues, and the experience she's exercised having been not only a senator for one of the most populous states that reflects our Caribbean diaspora, New York, but also having had the experience of being our Secretary of State in a time when there was war and turmoil and a layover of adversity. We were able to go through a process where we were not at combat. And it's fair to say that she is, based on her proposed policies for this territory, I can entrust that her promise and the support she has, we will get this done. I just want to thank everyone for having taken the time and recognizing the importance of your votes at this point in the process. We're this close. The results from yesterday's counts from Puerto Rico, we're approximately 19 delegates short, not short, but to date, to get there. It's fair to say by tomorrow evening after New Jersey count, I think once the polls closed, we should be truly having a nomination victory. And I think it's only fair that here in the Virgin Islands and in our neighboring Puerto Rico, that we too should be celebrating. I've been advised that the victory her victory or nomination recognition will be happening in her home office area of Brooklyn, New York. So we're welcoming anyone in my hearing who is on the island of St. Croix tomorrow evening at approximately 6:30. We would like to invite you to come over to my now home on this territory where I have the best pan fish at 2+2 let's get together and celebrate your contribution, your participation in the tone of we're having a watch party.
Are you inviting, what was the total vote? I think about 1,500 throughout the territory. Now, obviously, if you're in St. Thomas, you're not going to be here. But if you're in St. Croix, so the 700 plus Crucians that came out and vote, is that an open invitation to the 700 plus Crucians to come to 2+2?
So, let's find out what the fire marshal says and the owner, Mr. Jones, if that will facilitate. In all honesty, I know that the time might not, because of how we did it. One of the phenomenal things that happened here in the Virgin Islands for the first time as well is that the numbers we saw, I do believe that your councilwoman in the form of Carol Burke and the chairperson,
National Committee woman,
and your committee chair, Mr. Cecil Benjamin, there was a collaboration of identifying that there was a part of your constituent, the Sabbath worshippers in your territory, who had never been able to vote on Saturdays or Sabbaths.
Early voting.
The early voting here in the territory, in the Virgin Islands, contributed to almost 20% of the votes that were allocated. So I want to commend you both as well. And to respond to that, the reason I'm saying is that from 7 o'clock in the evenings, how many of us are truly going to come out to a watch party? As many of us who can, we welcome you. I will be speaking to Mr. Jones, the proprietor of this venue, to see if there's any way we could facilitate some kind of crowd control. We're hoping we'll all be there to watch the monitors. So
this is going to be like the Super Bowl
of the Democratic Party for the Virgin Islands. It's your contribution. It's your team. You've actually tagged Hillary Clinton.
I think her performance, 88%?
Yes, it was.
Has any other state or this territory deliver that kind of percentage to Hillary?
And thank you for asking, Anthony. Again, let me just point out the odds that this territory in the U.S. Virgin Islands, I commend you, I respect you. This is the only state that has delivered completely to the Hillary Clinton campaign and delivered all. And this is what set the pace, the trend of the momentum for the weekend. So I do know when the time comes, this is not going to be going unnoticed. It is truly a magnificent attempt for progress leading into the centennial of this territory for next year. You're almost going to be 100 years old, and everything that happened this week in the Virgin Islands is absolutely phenomenal. Everything that happened here. We were able to see the military in uniform voting, women, that we had so much, for example, I'm so fascinated because last night we crowned the first Army, a woman, an officer in the U.S. Army, was crowned Miss USA. And a woman of urban descent,
Mhm.
an African American, at a time like now historically. There is just so much for society to see that that change is continuously happening.
Mm.
And I reflect on that because I saw at least there was a few women who came out in their uniforms to vote, in their military garb to vote on election day, and it was just absolutely fascinating. It goes back to where we are now. I am so eager to see the harmony of the Democratic Party, the combination of unity between the Bernie Sanders supporters and the Hillary Clinton camp for us to just come together, because we will need that collaboration to face what we see as a nothing short of an adversarial political season.
You know, when I think of the optics and I look at how things can play out once they have decided and determined who the presumptive nominee is in the Democratic side, I am thinking that to have the likes of President Obama, former President Bill Clinton, Joe Biden, and Hillary Clinton, those are very 4 iconic names in national politics.
Let's not forget Michelle Obama.
Oh, yes. Sorry. Forgive me.
Thank you.
And Michelle Obama. Have we seen anything like that before? Cassandra, I'm going to call you in because I want to engage you. I enjoy talking politics with you. You know, you have your fingers on the pulse. You know the local politics. I mean, you are an expert, so I want to bring you in. Is there? I don't think in recent history where you have 5 major iconic names.
Let's not forget Elizabeth
And
Warren.
Elizabeth Warren
Don't forget.
on the campaign stump. I mean, really carrying out and being the standard bearer of the Democratic nominee, presumptive nominee, and the message. Is that I can't even begin to conceive how that's going to play out.
Well, it's going to play out in reality because what the who you've just identified, the surrogates, each of these people have already made a contribution to society, a meaningful contribution. There's experience of
These are juggernauts, big names.
We're not talking about people who've experienced or recognized themselves as marketing geniuses. We're talking about real humanitarians, proven civil servants, people who have actually set the pace. President Barack Obama had introduced so many initiatives that he was not able to execute because of a blocked Congress. And I think at this point,
That is just insane.
well, the executive orders he took, for example, something
He had to.
that appeals to us.
He had to.
In your previous program, you spoke of of some of the humanitarian and social needs that society reflects and needs, and one of them is truly healthcare. And we have seen that privatization as one of the opposing factors of the Republican Party. They just didn't want to have what they see as nationalized insurance because they wanted to see it otherwise.
Don't you think it's hypocritical when you elect the first black president and the statement coming out of the leadership out of the Senate and Congress that we're going to do whatever we have to make sure your legacy is a failure. You're going to fail. Mm-hmm. So I know if in order for me to succeed, I have to come through you, then why am I going to do that?
Well, you know what, Anthony?
I'm going to use the power of the executive order of the White House in order to be able to say, if I am going to succeed, I'm going to have to then find a way to defeat you.
Let us be clear, though, Anthony. President Barack Obama waited a whole presidential cycle,
Before he started applying the executive
exercising
order.
patience and diplomacy, and every method that he could possibly use to reason with that blockade. It's fair to say he did that, and getting into where he was criticized not only by Democrats, but why are you not taking these actions? And so the promises he made, in almost all promises, of supporting the immigration reform with a pathway to citizenship, which affects all populace, it really is disheartening that all these progresses were made, and here we are with the blocking of it. These things are so important. I think people need to understand that securing our next Supreme Court judge is going to determine all of these sanctions. There's so much to it that we tend not to realize. And I think, again, most importantly, this is not just about electing a president. We have primary elections coming up. We're electing our other, this is an election year. And the biggest part of making any change in anybody's mandate, Hillary Clinton can be elected and she will go in there with all the policies and ambitions she have. But we have to have a Congress to reflect that, which means we're going to have to make all of these Congress, but we need more blue in the Congress. We're going to have to make sure we elect people who are like-minded. We need Democrats to be elected to Congress, in our Senate houses, in our municipal districts. It is relative. It's not just her doing. We saw that with Barack Obama. We saw it where, the Republicans said, as you said earlier, that if unemployment stayed at 8%, we would have made success. It was a bit of a success, falling from where it was. If gas price fell below $2.50, below $3, we would have been great. Look where we are today. He saved the housing market. He saved the auto industry. He introduced universal health care. He introduced, right now, the DREAM Act. There are millions of people and students in the United States who didn't know that they were undocumented, who now are out of the dark and in schools. One of the things we did in Florida was, we lobbied as part of what the organization I am affiliated to prior to this was OFA, the Organized for America, Organized for Action body for Barack Obama, the president. And we made sure, we lobbied, did everything we could to help the Florida legislature to make sure that students who were undocumented were able to pay in-state tuition for schools. So that's happening. There are many kids in this country, particularly in California, who were able to get out of the dark to go to school, and now they're able to work and proceed with their studies. So much has happened. And here we have a president who's saying that regardless of how the economy shifted your careers, he's professing and requesting 2 years. There's hardly a difference with Bernie Sanders. Some of Bernie Sanders' principles or introductions that has incited a populace of millennia is that free education is something that most countries, the debt of students in the society is so harsh.
Hold that thought. When you come back, I want to draw a sharp contrast between what I see as two extremes, where you can have, for the first time, you have a candidate will publicly say, I could walk down Fifth Avenue and I can shoot somebody, and my supporters will still support me. Unheard of. And then you have someone who's never been a Democrat decide to become a Democrat, and all of a sudden, is running rampant. It's like a renegade, changing the rules in midfield. I understand that your those things that you're raised are important, but you have to work, towards getting to where you want to without hijacking, because that's what he did. He's hijacking the party.
Well, not only that, you have to have an informed electorate, and we can talk about that. I think we are so uninformed.
Exactly. Hold that thought. I know you're chomping on the bits with that. This is NBC Live in the Marketplace on WSCX 970 AM and the Callaloo Network. We'll be right back.
Especially, I was going to say, especially here, I mean, first of
You don't
all,
want the other one? Okay, then none of you looking kind of dwarfed in that.
I look dwarfed.
Yeah, you're like, that you don't see how low
I
that chair is.
stand tall.
No. And then push that chair back over.
I can speak over.
Thanks.
Yeah. So you're here through the
Primaries? No, I stayed over just to do some housekeeping, and because I promised Anthony I'd be here, and I thought instead of going to New York to be a part of that celebration, let me stay local.
We're at New York.
Pardon?
We're at New York.
I'm actually in Central Florida in Orlando, in the troubled state.
So are you working with Brian Fallon?
No, I'm not.
Okay, he's a Schumer.
Yes.
Brian, he runs Tilbury's National Communication. And what about Aaron in New York? Aaron Stevens in New York.
No, I'm with Marlon Marshall. I'm with Craig. I'm with David Han. I mean, I'm basically
David Han,
yeah.
really?
I'm really there on the core of the campaign. This is the first time we've had.
All right, folks, we're back, and thank you so much for tuning to WSCX 970 AM and the College Network. You're tuned into NBC Live in the Marketplace. I'm your host, Anthony Weeks, and in the studio with me is Dr. Karen Green, the Director for the Caribbean Diaspora for the Hillary Clinton campaign, and she's just wrapped up a pretty successful weekend in terms of Hillary Clinton on the verge of being declared of becoming the presumptive nominee. The first time in the history of the United States, you will have a female nominee for president. Ladies, that must be, I'm not a woman, so I'm not going to pretend to say that I know how you feel. But how does that feel?
There is so much pride. There is so much pride in knowing this. Not only that, but I think we, here in the Caribbean territories, we've actually taken much more pride in knowing that the territory where the Caribbean Sea touches the shores literally set the pace this weekend of Hillary going into Super Tuesday. And as for this month being Caribbean Month recognized in the United States, I just think this is just a phenomenal time for us.
Caribbean Heritage
Caribbean Heritage Month. It is for June. It's June, and we're here. And here we're on the first week of it, and we literally set the sails. Literally did that at not speed because of what we did here. There was that feeling. You know what it is when you have a victory, when there's a double momentum going in, and to think the pride of the folks here, it made a big difference. I wanted to go back to what you closed out on and to the comparison of where we are.
You mean the one party's in self-destruct mode and the other is really trying to hijack the other one?
Well, I think there's a certain incitement of, you did a comparison. I saw, there is the interest of the Bernie Sanders prophetic interest, his rhetoric, his enticement has created a certain level of anarchy in people who want things happening now. And then on the other side, what we have is anger and revenge.
But it's not realistic.
Well, here's my thing. I mean, as my colleague here said, it's really about educating people. And I think the demographic shows the students, there's a certain age range of folks who really just want something different. He has incited, as an independent, he saw his career too. I'm not speaking for him. However, I've known of him for over 30 years as just being one who has his own opinion. And here it is, let's face it. I was asked this morning, why doesn't he come out? My own son said to me this morning, Mother, I mean, seriously, when is he going to just give up? Even Muhammad Ali knew when the time came after his victory to take a lap, right? And so here we have a gentleman who, like a glad, it happens to athletes. You're hearing, just imagine this man at his age, hearing his name being called.
Oh boy.
There's a certain excitement, I would take it, that, you hear this, when is it going to stop? So in all fairness, it's time. It's hurting the party now. And we really need to come together as a group. The things that he said.
I mean, he has made her a better candidate.
He has.
I was about to say, there is a school of thought that says because he has pushed his agenda, she has had to be more responsive to.
And you're quite right. Not only that, but he's engaged a mass amount of people to now be registered Democrats. And so that in itself.
Are they really though?
Well,
I question that.
Well, the problem.
Because they're saying 50-50. They're saying 50% of his constituents are Democrat and 50% are independent.
Well, in some of the states where their primary was closed, you had to be a Democrat to vote. And so there was a lot of new voters who came out. This is not to say that everybody's going to vote, but the interest and the intrigue. I truly believe that, we as Democrats have always come together, regardless of how things were. We saw what it was in 2008. And we're here now. Even here in our own territory, one of the persons who was stirring the Bernie, campaign voted for Hillary and made a proclamation that he did. And so we're there. In the progress of our society, what we need to face now and identify is what are we going to do? Because we cannot have a Donald Trump presidency. We cannot have that. And so just as how they applied fear to us in the 90s and in the early 2000s, we really need to identify what it is that the fear is about now. The fear is we will have a person who is saying to us now that religiously you're going to be challenged, or religious rights are going to be taken from us. He's preparing to build a wall. Who is to say that territory of the U.S. Virgin Islands would not be seen by executive order if we have that kind of Congress? The fears are real. That people from this territory, most of us are from different Caribbean islands. And if you can say somebody born in Hawaii is not American.
But don't you find it kind of strange and again contradictory, hypocritical, where they said they're the party of Lincoln, and then the legacy of Ronald Reagan is quoted all the time. Wasn't Reagan that said, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear the wall down"?
Mm-hmm.
How could you in one breath talk about or propose something that's going to be symbolic of creating division or sort of a blockade when Eastern Europe had gone through this same period of divided? And where Reagan said tear the wall down, and here you come now saying build the wall.
Well, you know what, you said how. And quite frankly, this is my opinion. I really think because Donald Trump is an entertainer, he's a mass marketing strategist. He's talking to people who want to hear what
But what does it say about the people, though?
That's my point. That is exactly
back
the
to
point.
Education. Remember when he said, "I love the uneducated"? That is preying on the people that are now rallying behind him, and they don't even understand what that means.
Well, what they do know is what they do understand is that they do not want. They have all been upset with what we've been. They're all upset with it. Let's face it. We're from the Caribbean. We've long heard that Barack Obama should not have been president. And so there's
started with the birther issue.
It started with the birther issue.
Right.
And in all honesty, he pulled the same birther issue on his own friend from Canada.
Who's that?
When it was time for another Republican who was on the ticket, who was basically vying for it.
McCain?
No, we're talking about within the recent election.
Okay.
Or Canadian, his recent rival who
Right.
just, the point is that
Oh, Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz.
So he pulled the same Bertha thing for him to being naturalized recently, a Canadian American. I'm just saying that there is a part of the Americas, people who listen to talk radio, uneducated talk radio.
But how could you? Okay, ladies, please forgive me. Where does education come in? Unless you're blind and you're deaf. Today you say you're for one thing. 10 minutes later, you change your position and you're saying something else. You don't have to be educated to see and hear that Donald Trump is flip-flopping left, right, center, upside down. He's not consistent with anything.
It's not about the messenger at this point. It's the message that he's giving, that there are people out there who want to hear that hate. They want to hear that resentment. They want to hear
the lies.
They want to hear the fact
the
that
blatant lies and inconsistencies.
They want to hear the enragement of saying that if we don't do this, we're gonna protest. We're gonna we want an open war. I mean, this is where we are. We have a market. I mean, let's face it.
Okay, so what does that say? Okay, I'm gonna go with you. Let's say this is he's preying on the uneducated. What about the Republican leadership? Those who are the rank and file, who have basically said, well, we know he said that. We know that he's dividing the party. We know this, we know that. But why are they lining up and saying, but guess what? We're going to support you anyway?
Well, you know what? I cannot speak for the mind of the followers of Donald Trump. What I can speak on is the conviction of the people supporting Hillary Clinton, that the wise will continue to, we know where we've been. And as a Caribbean community, as I can speak for that much, I can say that this is the first time there's ever been an election where the focus on Caribbean dissidents was actually, we've actually become a part of the constituency. We're not just African Americans. We now have one of the largest groups of the populace in the United States. I think we're almost 13% in the next census, next to the Hispanic caucus. So we have a value here. And the culture of this people is not about criminal-minded or any kind of revolt. We're people who want to do progressive, ambitious things. We've contributed to the United States in the economy, educationally, militarily. We are a great part of this fabric of this country. And so the idea and the ideologies that come, and more so, we're religious. We're religious in so many ways. So when we hear someone coming up to say that, there are boundaries with countries that are connected even by landmass, what is going to happen to those of us who had to fly there or fly here? What are the boundaries that are going to be exercised on us?
Mm-hmm. You know, I have a question, Karen, because very often in our communities, and we hear it on talk radio all the time. What has Hillary Clinton done for the African American community? I hear many people using that as a reason to oppose her, and I'd like to kind of just get some feedback from you about uh, what is your response to that question?
Well, I can speak at this point to say that I am engaged in Hillary's party for one campaign. She has long had in the state of New York. They've always been her urban interests. There's always been her children issues and human rights initiatives. She's always been there every time there has been a crisis in our Caribbean community, within our own state of New York. Hillary Clinton has always been there, outside of any kind of family foundations or everything we speak of. I know that I've sat in policy hearings. I've seen when she acted in our Senate as a senator back then, talking about employment ratio, there's always been a balance of it wasn't about affirmative action. It was about a representation of her constituency. She's always been a part of this community in the Caribbean, that is, herself, as well as not only when she was First Lady, but having gone through most of the travesties that occurred within the territories in the Caribbean back then, applying real humanitarian responses to these issues. More so even now, I think the idea that she could sit and realize that there is a community that has long been somewhat shadowed, seen as the Americas per se. She was the only person, even under an organized, Barack Obama's Organized for America, the strongest grassroots organization that I'm so proud to have been a part of. She was the one who saw that the Caribbean community was essential. And this represents, and the African American group, this represents a strong group. And it's not just a map of what everybody needs. She literally outlined a policy for each territory, particularly for the Virgin Islands, and the values of what we saw, the health reform here that needs to occur, veterans' rights. We realized only since I've been here and within the last inquiries within the territory, that there are so many veterans here who have not, and after speaking to the veterans, you're the coordinator for the veterans' rights here, there are so many veterans who are so disenfranchised even by medical care. They're critically ill, they have to be flown to Puerto Rico. There are clinics that are on property here on the territory here, and these are all things that Hillary has actually taken a keen interest in. She's taken an interest in knowing that the students here on this territory no longer have a community college that affords them certain trainings. It's not here. She also knows that most of the students here, if the population continues along this trend, every student after leaving high school typically goes to the mainland to go to school. And in most cases, it's because they cannot afford. Their parents have options that they're single parents, as I have met a few over the last couple of days. Affordable health is such a challenge here for people who are genetically inclined to be diabetic or have glaucoma or any other critical illnesses. These are serious issues. The fact that Hess is no longer here, the economy, the infrastructure, housing, everything that your policy that she has seen, education is a key focus for her in this territory. And so it's not like she's looked at a general map for everywhere. Within the last 4 months, Jake Sutherland, who is her key advisor and had been a policy advisor to Barack Obama as well, sat down with the Caribbean community leads. We have a national leadership committee, and every country within the territory was represented. And we looked to see what it is that a Caribbean community needs or wants to contribute to within our America, her policies. And so these were all outlined. Haiti, Jamaica, the Virgin Islands, even though this is the Americas, the interest of Hillary Clinton believes, and I will reiterate, that every American, regardless of where you're born, you should have the right to vote, to exercise every constitutional right of any other person in the territories. So to respond to your question, what has she done? She has been advocating for children from she herself was almost a child. And it was not partisan. It was not about segregation. It was about every child. And so I think not only that, but the fact that she is one of us. I know that women seem to be able to speak to each other. We are the economists. We are the educators, the first voices for children here. We're the founders of we're the number one economists in any society.
You're speaking of women.
Women,
The
on
role
a
of
whole,
women.
the role of women. I'm saying to say that the experience she has of recognizing not just as a financial contributor, but having been the wife of one of the strongest presidents in our generation, having steered that even when she was in the White House, one of the first things, every president, every first lady, I'm praying that we will have a first gentleman in Bill Clinton, takes on an initiative. And from the day she got there, she's always been part of the healthcare reform has long been her interest and her corporate platform. So this is not new to her. And so we want to have somebody to take us beyond the progress that has already been made.